Hey, there we are. Get myself caught up to current here. I'm gonna man a little tug. Get it set to all messages. All right, Winston and Zini, hello. And I did not just pack a bowl, but I have been working on a bowl. So I'll continue working on that. It's just more of my blue dream. You probably can't tell yet, but if you look closely, you will notice a big white bucket in my pond there. So we're just running a filtration cycle through the pond tonight, and I may get in the 55 here. No, we're not going to be working the 55. We might get in the gourami tank and do some work. I will leave it up to you guys because you got one of two choices. I can drink some mushroom juice, or we can do some tank maintenance. But I ain't doing both. So you guys let me know what you would prefer, and we'll go with that. But I can already tell you, if you say mushroom juice, I'm not going to be drinking a lot of it, but I will drink some of it. And then we can talk about my mushroom juice that I got, because I got that, and I got my vape this week. I'm okay with the vape, but I'm not crazy about it. But again, we can talk about it. Well, Zini, I know you didn't need to. Val, how are you this evening? I was gonna say, I know Zini doesn't need to be asked. Oh, you know what? I already fed the goldfish tank, but I'll show you what we're doing here for a minute before we move on, and we'll do the next tank because I'm already kind of working on this one. These grubby little bastards think they're getting more food again. This is just the green piece on the bottom there that you can't really see at the moment. That is a soil sieve. So if you're like grading your potting soil and you want to get the gravel and stuff out of it, this has a 1/4 inch screen in the bottom of it. And then you just shake it back and forth like you're panning for gold or whatever, and it sifts your soil, gets all the big rocks and stuff out of it. So I just use it as a base plate. I cut the bottom out of this bucket, and then I just throw some filter material in the bottom of the bucket, and then just put a pump in the goldfish tank. I feed the goldfish sinking food, so they get in there around the bottom and start stirring all the mud and everything up, and then we just let it filter. So I do need to get in there and replace that filter pad because the bucket's starting to fill up now. And it should be flowing fairly freely. That's a good one to say. Flowing fairly freely through the bottom of the container there. So I'll get you set up on the next tank, and then we will go ahead and swap out that filter material. I do have some funny stories to tell about mushroom and psychedelia kind of stuff tonight. Actually got me and the missus laughing their fucking heads off this evening. So I will share that bit of comedy. But the other thing I have noticed is in like hitting the reset button on my brain, the things that I used to be really passionate about, like if you spent any time around me, when I talk about songs I like or music I like, I really, really like the stuff that I like, and I really, really don't like the stuff that I don't like. And that has kind of gone away too. I've been listening to some stuff that I really should have been just fucking into tonight. I was just like kind of, this is good music. I can understand why I like it and everything, but it just wasn't doing it for me the way it should have been. And so I feel like just pretty much all the way around the board, I've hit some sort of reset button on my brain. Christopher, how are you this evening? Aquabotany, how are you? I did have my space heater on for a little while this morning. It was pretty chilly. I went outside today at like 3 o'clock peak prime time weather, and it was, depending on where I shot my little laser gun, I could find the lowest temperature, ambient temperature near the ground was 69 degrees, and the ambient temperature like just above the ground was about 70.1 degrees or something like that. And since there was no actual sun shining, if I were to go and put the laser gun on some of the areas where sun would have been shining, you know, I'm assuming the, you know, infrared radiation was still hitting it, even though it was all overcast and cloudy today. Even those spots, the highest temperature I could find in the backyard was 73 degrees today, and that was like at the hottest part of the day. So this morning when I was down here and I had the fan on because I was down here smoking the bowl, you know, I was pulling in that outside air that, you know, as of this morning might have been 63, 64 degrees. So yeah, it was chilly down here this morning in August. Again, chilly. And I had my actual space heater running a little while this morning. My wife didn't believe me. I had to send her a picture showing her the fire in the heater. All right, I just threw some more algae wafers, broken up algae wafers into the goldfish pond here, and that will be more bottom type food. We'll get them rummaging around and should get the mud and stuff stirred up a lot more. And I'll go ahead and put a new piece of filter in there. Actually, we're just going to fold this whole thing up and stick it in there. All right, we are now officially working on our second filter pad. So the mushroom vape cartridge I got is probably not something I would buy again. First of all, it's disposable, and I don't like buying disposable vapes to begin with because you're just throwing all that, you're using it once and throwing all that shit right in the landfill, and it's got a battery and everything else in it. So that's what it looks like. It's got their little treehouse logo on the bottom there. It tastes like mango, whatever, you know, it just tastes like some fruity vape juice stuff. And according to the packaging, 1 to 3 hits, you know, day at the office, 3 to 6, you know, you're getting there, and, you know, 8 to 10, and you're like on the moon or whatever fanciful language they use. Is I find that if I start puffing on it, it starts to sort of calm me down and calm my mind, and I feel a little more relaxed and chilled out. And if I'm patient and I just keep working on it and keep puffing on it and keep puffing on it, after several minutes of puffing on it, I can get to the point where I feel kind of spaced out. Uh, but it's similar to the kind of spaced out feeling you get when you take cough medicine. So it's, I don't know, I never really felt like I was tripping off of it. I felt kind of spacey off of it. And that's not necessarily what I'm going for. I did find, however, that when I drank the mushroom syrup yesterday and I did 3 doses, I kept stepping it up because I didn't want to do too much all at once. By the time I, you know, got that 3rd dose in me, I was tripping pretty good by 8, 9 o'clock last night. And then if I would take some puffs on the mushroom vape, it was just like a little bump on the trip, and it kicked it in a little harder. I think ultimately, though, after my experiences with the chocolate and the syrup and all that stuff, I think I just want to get mushrooms again and just make mushroom tea. None of these feel the same kind of tripping as an actual mushroom trip. These all feel different in some way. They feel more spacey, less visual. I don't know. It's kind of strange. I'm not complaining about it. I enjoy it, but it's not the same as an actual mushroom trip. And that's kind of what I've been looking for with these different products, to get that same effect, but with the convenience of a chocolate bar, you know? I just don't think you're going to get that kind of payoff. All right. Let me see where I am comment-wise here. Thank you for the compliment on the goldfish. Christopher's got a big announcement coming Friday. Steve, how are you? 3G, hello. And we're caught up. What did you say felt great, Steve? All right, let's move you guys around to the next tank. And I guess if I'm going to have a swig of my mushroom juice, I'll go ahead and have a swig. I only got 2 votes, and both of them were for mushroom juice. So that's what we're going with. Sorry, anybody that wanted tank maintenance done. If you wanted it, you should have said something. I might be able to manage a little bit of tank maintenance, but we'll see. All right, let's get you moved to the next tank. Get some food in there for everybody. I guess we'll start with some granules tonight since that's what I picked up. I did do a little bit of work in here already this evening. You'll notice the glass is nice and clean and the tank is topped off. So I did actually top off a few tanks and I cleaned the glass on a few tanks this evening. So I did do a little bit of work in preparation for the live stream. I know a lot of people like to see me do work on the live stream. Oh, and I just noticed that this filter is no longer flowing. I wonder how long it's been not squirting water out of it. And I wonder why it's not squirting water out of it. No, it's vapor locked. That's why. It's trying to squirt water out of it. It just can't because it's got a vapor lock in it. Why it's got a vapor lock in it, I'm not sure. Oh, that's going to blow some dirty fucking water out of there first. All right, it's running again. It's trying to run again. All right, we're going to give this tank about 2 or 3 more minutes of letting that water flow out of the filter. I do not know how long it's been since it was flowing. Once it got vapor locked, it just sort of swirls the water around that's in there, just swirls it around. You can get like grungy, nasty shit, ammonia and stuff like that building up in a filter that's just been sitting, spinning like that for a couple days. And I don't think that is going to be the case. I don't think it's been a couple days since that was running. And I don't think we're going to see any ammonia in the tank. But a good fish keeper like myself doesn't wait till he sees his fish swimming around looking funny before he starts checking for stuff like that. So I'm going to do a quick ammonia test on this tank just to double check to make sure I didn't dump a load of toxic fucking water into that tank. And if I did, we are going to be doing an emergency water change. I don't believe I did, though. I wouldn't have just pumped it like that and got it going if I really believed I was going to be putting a bunch of toxic shit into the tank. But better safe than sorry, so we're going to check. There's no downside to me getting a negative test, but me waiting to find out the hard way has its downsides. All right. Got my sample. Now with the ammonia, I believe we do 8 drops a piece. And there's no shaking or anything involved, so let's just do 8 drops. Now, I will tell you on the ammonia test, when you squeeze the bottle for the first drops, it's a really thick liquid, and you kind of have to squeeze a little bit hard to get it to go out. The second bottle, however, is a thinner, more watery consistency than rubbing alcohol, and simply turning the bottle over will have the first couple drops come out. So if you turn the ammonia bottle over and squeeze, you will actually squirt it out of there. So be very careful on bottle number 2 with the ammonia to get 8 drops. All right, once we've got those 8 drops, we'll give it a little shake, and then we'll wait and see if it turns green. It shouldn't, but we will wait and see. All right, let me put this away. pretty soon I'm going to have to cut some more filter material for the pond because that's going to get clogged up, and that's the last piece I've got in here. All right, let's, I already fed the tank. They all don't look like they're doing anything, so let's just move on to the next tank. So this tank I definitely need to get in. I did a little bit of cleaning in here today. I cleaned the glass, and I removed a bunch of duckweed. But look at the algae that's growing all over everything. There's just so much hair algae in this tank. It looks terrible. Everything's covered in green fuzz. So I did scoop out a bunch of shrimp out of my shrimp tank, and I threw them in here tonight. I don't know how long they're going to last, but even just a few shrimp in here working on that algae for a few days before they get eaten off, then I'll definitely get some progress on the algae. I'm probably going to get some nearite snails or something in here too. I think keeping shrimp in this tank will be problematic with the type of fish I have in here. But nearite snails will do a good job at cleaning that up and will not get eaten. Mike, how are you? Oh, the temperature felt good. I got you. It didn't for me, man. It was fucking chilly today. I had my house closed up. I had the space heater on. Technically, all of the vape pens have little rechargeable batteries in them if you want to disassemble it and try to get the battery out. I just don't know what I would do with a little tiny lithium battery. I don't have any use for that. I'm not an electronics guy. Big Clive collects those, and he takes them all apart, and he saves those little batteries, but I don't really have a use for them. You could be either, Zini. Said hello, Mike. Oh, if we do the mushroom juice, it'll be more than any old 8 drops. Nice, Mike. Good to hear it. Hey, Bob, how are you? All right, just reading along, getting caught up. Well, if you do get somebody working for him, pay them. Not a big fan of slave labor here in America. All right, let me go grab my mushroom juice, and I'll show you what we're talking about. I poured some out. I poured it into a little bottle to give to Steve next time I see him, and I was surprised to see that it was clear. This stuff tastes so nasty. It is strawberry gelato flavor, and so I was expecting it to be like a red color or something. It tastes like fucking cough medicine. It's not pleasant at all, but it's a fairly small bottle. It's only 4 fluid ounces, and I've probably drank it down to about here already. It's about what it feels like. Remember, I poured a little bottle out for Steve too. So my first swig was probably a weak teaspoon, 3/4 of a teaspoon. My second swig was probably a solid teaspoon, and then my third swig was probably a little less than a teaspoon again. So I had maybe a tablespoon total over about a 3-hour period. I did a sip, waited an hour and a half, did another sip, waited about an hour and a half, and then did another sip. So let's have another sip now. I forgot how gross that is. All right, I just did a big solid teaspoonful. God damn, it's so gross. I wonder what it'd be like to pour it in some Sprite or something like that. If you pour like a teaspoon into a whole glass, it would probably dilute it enough that it wouldn't be like fucking cough syrup. Imagine like drinking like cherry flavored Robitussin. It says strawberry, but it's, I don't know. Imagine strawberry Robitussin. That's about what it fucking tastes like. God damn. Now I got to drink some iced tea or something to get that taste out of my mouth. So I think next week I got a little bit of work I got to get done on a few days, but I will have a couple of days free next week. And I think on one of those days I might make my venture down to DC and go to the mushroom dispensary down there and buy a couple of bags of actual mushrooms. And that way I can make tea. Oh, God, that's so gross. Ugh. Much better. And it's thick, too. It's really thick, syrupy. Again, it's like drinking Robitussin. Like the taste just stays in your mouth. Like it coats the inside of your mouth with that syrupy flavor, and it just doesn't come out. Even now, I can still taste it, even over top of the iced tea I just washed it down with. I still have that cherry, strawberry, fruity, nasty chemical flavor in my mouth. It doesn't sound good at all. I mean, it doesn't taste good at all. I'm trying to read and talk at the same time. Well, I know what they're called, but I also know what it is. Well, it's obviously it's not slave labor, but unpaid labor is not cool. Yeah, you're going to be saving batteries for a long time, Steve. So that's the other thing I was, saying about them. They're tiny, tiny little batteries. Unless you're like an electronics person that does stuff, you make little drones, or you have a reason to make little blinking LED lights that you're going to put in your train museum or something like that. Like those tiny little batteries are almost, there's nothing you can use them for. They're so small. Well, it looks tasty, but it is not. Yeah, well, this definitely is not THC juice, that's for sure. Robitussin. If you like Robitussin, you'll like this stuff. Then, no doubt about that. You'll love this. Oh, I was actually thinking about you, Bob, as I was using my coal tar soap tonight. I knew somebody said they had bought some. I thought it was you, but I wasn't sure. And I was going to ask if it was having an impact or not. So I'm glad to hear it. $60 milligrams. See, I don't know dosages and milligrams and stuff like that. I know that with my mushroom juice that I just drank, the high potency syrup, 1 teaspoon is the equivalent of 50 milligrams of their proprietary mushroom blend stuff. So what the fuck does that mean? I don't know. Is 50 milligrams a lot? I don't know. But that, I guess if you take some and you find out, then you can say, okay, maybe 150 or 100 is where I want to be. But you kind of have to take it first to figure out what 50 milligrams of their mushroom juice does to you. It's great that you tell me that. It says it on the label, but that means nothing to me. I don't know if it tells me. I've still got the box from the chocolate, so let me see what the. I actually have the box for the other stuff too. I'll show you. This is what the vape thing came in. Little container, and then you flip that open, and it just held the little vape cartridge on the inside with some packing material. And of course, it's got their melting mushrooms and all that logo-y stuff all over it, and it just came in a little USPS box, but they also put their logo and stuff on the sticker on the inside. So I'm sure I kept the box for the chocolate bar. I just don't know where it is. No, I don't know where it is. Maybe it's upstairs somewhere. I thought I left it down here. Oh, I did. It's right here. Didn't even get out of this room. All right, let me put my seeing eyeballs on here, and I'll see if I can read. They put some tiny fucking print on this shit. All right, it is microdose chocolate, 50 grams or 1.76 ounces net weight. Oh, Jesus, I can't even read what it... Even with my glasses on, I can't see this shit. I need to go get my giant all-seeing eye. Proprietary nootropic mushroom blend, 22.5 milligrams. And that is for 1 square. So 1 square is 22.5 milligrams of their proprietary blend. So I'm guessing 1 teaspoon is similar to 2 squares, if I'm doing my math correctly there. Eastern black-nosed dace. Oh, I didn't realize dace were plant eaters. Interesting. Hey, Craig, how are you? Good, glad to hear it. Well, I don't know. I don't have anything to go by as far as other mushroom chocolate bars, but if you're comparing it to THC, that's, you just can't compare one to the other. It's like saying, LSD, 50 micrograms is, 100 micrograms, that's 1/10 of 1 gram, and you're tripping fucking balls at 1/10 of 1 gram. Or 1/10 of 1 milligram. So a microgram is a tiny, tiny amount of anything. And LSD is that potent. So you can't say, well, I ate this chocolate bar that had, 25 milligrams of LSD in it. You probably wouldn't, your brain would melt. So I don't know if you can compare the chocolate bars with the THC, or I don't know, maybe you're talking about other chocolate bars with mushrooms. I have nothing to go by on that. I've never eaten store-bought edibles. I've never done. I did one time. Steve gave me a drink, a little swig of his. He had some THC syrup juice, and I did a swig of that. I don't know how much I drank. I don't know how potent it was or anything else about it, but I did do a little swig of that. That's the only store-bought edibles I've ever done. Every time I do edibles, I've made them myself. And again, I have no way of measuring how much per cookie or anything like that. I just make them with roughly the same amount of weed material every time, and I kind of get a feel for how strong they are once I eat a few, and I just go by that. So I couldn't even begin to tell you what would be a good weed dose for me. Maybe 100 milligrams would be a lot. Maybe 100 milligrams wouldn't hardly get me started based on what I'm used to eating. I don't know. Nootropic, not nootropis. You waiting for another flood? I don't know if that much acid would be fun. I think that much acid would be terrifying. That's a lot of acid. So I will tell you my funny story, though. When I was driving up to the grocery store tonight, I wanted some chicken for dinner. And I was driving up there, and I'm thinking about whether I was going to eat any mushrooms tonight, because I did a lot last night, and I didn't do anything today. It was just kind of a dull day. I just kind of hung around and didn't do a whole lot of anything. It was gray and chilly out, and it was just that kind of day. I didn't do shit. And so as I'm driving up to the grocery store, I was thinking about, whether I was going to eat some mushrooms again. And then the name Psychedelic Dan popped into my head, and I was like, oh, man, am I going to be like the psychedelic guy now? I was like, I don't want to be the psychedelic guy. Like, everybody knows the psychedelic guy. And I got to thinking about the psychedelic guy, and he's good to know, because if you ever want mushrooms or acid or something, that's who you get them from. But at the same time, like, nobody wants to hang out with that guy because he's fucking weird. And he talks about weird spacey shit and sings little songs and so on and so forth. And so I just kind of dismissed that and, did my thing, came home, blah, blah, blah. So I'm talking to my wife when I get home. And I said something about it was starting to rain, and she was like, oh man, I was getting ready to go outside. And I said, well, don't worry, it's only tiny little drops of water. And she's like, oh, that would make a good song. And she just launches into this song about tiny little drops of water falling from the sky. And she's singing it in this really high sing song, like Tiny Tim sort of voice, until she gets to the last word of the sentence. And she's like, bruh, and goes down into this like death metal. I'm just looking at her like, what the fuck are you doing? And then it dawned on me, like, oh my God, did I marry the psychedelic guy? Is my wife the psychedelic guy? I told her that. She fucking almost fell over laughing so hard, because we were already laughing at her stupid song that she was singing. And then when I told her why I was laughing, because it was extra funny for me what I had just been thinking, we had a whole second round of laughter after the whole, my wife being the psychedelic guy. So I'm not fucking kidding, dude. Within a few minutes of that, we started talking about, she was thinking like different ideas for things we could do around here that would like be good social things to do. And she was talking about a fucking drum circle in a yurt. I was like, please don't tell me I'm going to have to build a fucking sweat lodge out in the yard. I do not want to build a fucking sweat lodge. I don't want a yurt. I'm not wearing crystals for their healing power, God damn it. I'm not going to be the psychedelic guy. Oh, God. Fucking yurt for a drum circle. Robert, how are you? Oh, I have no idea on that one, Mike. I've never kept the mountain minnows before, and I have no idea about their spawning habits. Yeah, I took about a tablespoon of that. So I had about 75 milligrams. Eh. Put my yurt channel. Yeah, they do, Cornish. I told you, these things are no joke. All right, Steve's got a drum. Nice. I was thinking about you today, Cornish, with the, I wasn't sure if it was you or not. I thought it was you. But I know you said you can't, smoke the weed because of the drug testing. But if they're not testing for mushrooms, you might actually be interested in the mushroom vape, because it felt more to me like I was vaping on like a low grade THC, like I was getting like a buzz on. Again, it didn't feel like I was tripping from this vape at all. Like, again, if I smoked enough of it, like I literally just sat there for like minutes just puffing on it, I would get to the point where I would feel like just sort of spacey and out of it. Again, that sort of cold medicine-y sort of feeling, which is not a pleasant feeling. I didn't want to feel like that. but just a little bit. And I just felt kind of relaxed and chill, nice and mellow. And I was thinking if you wanted to just puff on something and not like trip like you're eating mushrooms, but still not have to worry about a drug test, you might actually be interested in trying out that vape. Don't know what the arum is, but the peace lilies are easy to grow. I got a few peace lilies growing out of my fish tanks. Oh my God, hell no, Steve. Yeah, they weren't cheap, and the only ones they offer are disposable ones. So again, you'll get one of these little jobs. But it's definitely a nice little replace. It would be, if I couldn't smoke weed, that would be a nice little replacement for it. It's not exactly the same, but just a few puffs on it will give you a nice little sort of calming headspace sensation. So it's not nothing, but it's probably not something I'll buy again. Yeah, I was going to say you're probably just getting standardized drug testing that complies with what their insurance company requires. They're not doing mass spectrometry on your urine sample unless there's a real reason they're specifically looking for something, for a court case or something like that. Otherwise, I can't imagine that they would be testing for mushrooms. They probably don't test for LSD either. No, Steve, I'm talking about hitting on this thing, like just puffing it and puffing it and puffing it and puffing it, and then letting it cool down a little bit, and then puffing it and puffing it and puffing it and puffing it for 6 or 7 minutes of just steadily puffing on it, doing it until like the taste of it's starting to make me feel a little gaggy, like, oh God, like one more fucking puff of mango flavor in my mouth is going to make me sick. Like puffing on it like that. If I do that, I can get to the point where I feel like I've taken some cold medicine or something. 25 puffs maybe over a period of 5 minutes. And each puff I do is really 3 puffs because I do a mouth to lung. I fill my mouth up and then inhale it. And I'm assuming that's what they're calling a puff because this is very clearly meant to be a mouth to lung type vaping situation. And so I'll do that 3 times. I'll fill my mouth, inhale it, fill my mouth, inhale it, fill my mouth, inhale it, and then hold it. Exhale, repeat. And I do that about 20 times. And I get to the point where I feel like I've drank some cold medicine. The Wickershire Project Off Grid. That is one hell of a name. How are you doing this evening? Oh, you haven't even seen my Discus tank yet. All right. Shroomies Dispensary keeps emailing me. I started to fill out an order with the Shroomies dispensaries to find out what their shipping cost was going to be. And when I got to the delivery, where they were shipping it to, it kept asking me for my province. And I just figured, well, if I don't have a province because I'm in America, I'll just put in my zip code because it was, zip code and province. And every time I would do it, it would not let me leave that screen until I put in a province. And so eventually I decided this must be Canadian shipping only. They just don't ship to America because I don't have a fucking province and I can't fill that out. There's nothing for me to put in that fucking space. And so I gave up. And the next day I got a message from them saying like, oh, you haven't completed your order. Don't you want to finish your order and then we'll get your product shipped to you? And so I sent a response email saying, like, do you ship to the United States? And I never got a reply. I just keep getting these, like, don't you want to finish your order? So it's all automated. I'm not actually getting a person. So I do want to go on their website and find out if I can actually order mushrooms to the United States, because I haven't yet found a place that will just ship me actual mushrooms. There was one place that if I contacted them, I could make a payment. And once I'd contacted them and made the payment, they would make arrangements to ship it to me. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing that. I'll do it if I can buy it from a fucking company. I'm not doing this like some dude over the internet will ship me some mushrooms if I hook up with him. Which is the vibe I got. They presented it very much like it was a legit store, but the way the process you had to go through to actually get the mushroom shipped seemed like a few steps too many for me. So I just kind of didn't worry about that one. But the Shroomies place was the only other place I could find that actually just ships whole mushrooms in bags. And I still haven't gotten a response of whether they ship to America or not. I do have that place in DC. I can just take an hour and 40-minute drive and just head down to the White House. And there's a shroom dispensary about a block from the White House. And I'm thinking about heading down there and checking that out. All right, Zini. Oh, that sounds interesting, Winston. Good night, sweet prince. If you wake up early and we're still here, you're welcome to rejoin the stream anytime you'd like. And getting back to the questions about the Discus, I know this tank is filthy. This is one of the ones I did not get to cleaning the glass down, but I do have 2 more Discus in this tank. And then, of course, that right there is my actual Discus tank that's got 8 Discus in it and a bunch of other fish. So we'll get to that one here shortly. We won't spend a lot of time looking at this tank because it just looks like crap right now. It's just, I didn't get a chance to get the glass cleaned off or anything. But you can see right there, front and center, there's one of the Discus. I have 2 of them in here. I got 3 from one of my viewers, and these 2 sort of paired off and were bullying that 3rd one. So that's the reason my gourami tank only had that single Discus in here that looked basically the same as these 2. It was the same as these 2. I got all 3 of them together. And then, like I said, these 2 in here paired off, and I keep saying 2, but you only see the one. There are 2 of them in there. Okay, there, now you can see both of them. So once they paired off, they sort of started bullying that other one, and that's why I moved that to the gourami tank. And the one in the gourami tank is actually doing better than these, because these are in here with these really boisterous minnows, and it just keeps the Discus a little stressed out. They're always a little on edge with all the crazy minnows dashing and darting around. So something will change at some point. I know I've been saying that forever, but we will do something to get these. Either we're going to put the minnows somewhere else, or we're going to put the Discus somewhere else, or something. I don't really know where I can do anything or move anything at the moment. So we'll have to wait and see. But anyway, you get the idea. And even through all this muck, you can really see some really, really nice color, blues and dark blacks and stuff coming out on that one. All right, let's move on to my betta fish tank. We'll get this one fed real quick. And Gilgalad is in there somewhere. Let's see if he comes out. Little guppies are already up front and center, right in their corner where they know they're getting their nummies. Make some splashy noises, and maybe that'll get his attention. I don't know where he is. Oh, there he comes out of his little cave on the bottom. So that is my half moon betta fish. All right, let me see where I was. Okay. No, not one puff per minute. Definitely not one puff per minute. Well, all I'm hoping with this disposable is that the battery doesn't die while I still have juice left, because they're notorious for doing that. If it does, it's not that big a deal. I'll just break it open. I'll fucking just pour the juice into my mouth, or I'll pour the juice into one of my other vape devices, and I'll still vape it. I'm just getting caught up on comments. I haven't fallen asleep or anything. I'm still here. Yeah, if I had to worry about the government listening to things I said and did or whatever, I'd have been in jail 25 or 30 years ago. They ain't fucking worried about any dumb shit I'm talking about. It's my beta fish. All right, Mike, you enjoy your vacation? No, no charging port. It is purely disposable. All right, let us moveth on to the final tank of the evening that we're going to be looking at, which is the Discus tank. And then once we're done feeding the Discus tank, I will have a seat and we'll spend the rest of the evening chatting about whatever and tell you about my mushroom stories over the last few days and whatnot. And I still, so far, have. Well, last night was kind of, I just sort of went with the trip and had a good time, just sort of enjoyed myself. I didn't really think about it as anything other than recreational. And since I didn't have anything to worry about, no live streams, and, I just basically had the night off. Um, Thursdays are usually nights that I can just kick back and get a little higher than normal, or I can. So I drank a little more of that mushroom juice last night than I would normally have, and I tripped pretty good last night. Again, shaking that bottle today, it's about half fucking gone already. So I probably drank a little more of it than I realized yesterday. But I did have a good time last night. I tripped pretty solid last night. Other than that, though, every trip I've done for like the last 2 weeks has not even been what I would call a trip. It's just been a sort of mild mushroom experience. That's not the same as a trip. A trip is fairly intense, and I have not yet had an intense experience with this stuff. I'm not sure I want to. Like I said, I'm been enjoying these sort of low key, just sort of buzz equivalent, mushroom equivalent, whatever you call a buzz, a very low grade mushroom experience. It's been enjoyable. Holy crap, I just drank like half my bottle of iced tea. I must have been thirstier than I realized. They are rainbows. The bright orange one is the male, and the two yellowy ones are the females. I used to have 7, but several of them died off years ago, and these 3 survived the incident, and I've had them ever since. They're 6 or 7 years old now, I guess, and they are millennium rainbow fish, and they are obviously albino millennium rainbow fish. And I'm starting to look at one of my Siamese algae eaters, and I'm going to bet that this Siamese algae eater is dead within a couple of days. Can you see that one sitting on that log right there next to the angled rock? It's kind of facing towards us. It's really fat, and it's got the discus are right above it right now. They're almost blocking the view of it. That like black stripe you can see is the fish. I don't want to get too close to it because I don't want to startle it and make it swim away. But look how fast its mouth is moving and passing water over its gills. Really, really rapid breathing, and it's really fat all of a sudden, like bloated fat. And so I suspect that fish is going to be dead within a day or two. But I bought them full grown. They were already about 5 or 6 inches long when I bought them, and that was years ago. So I have no idea how old these. I got 2 of them in here that are roughly that size. And I would suspect if one is dying now, the other one probably won't be far behind because, again, they were probably several years old when I bought them. And I've had them for fucking, I don't even know how long I've had them, 8 years, 7 years, something like that. They've been in this tank since I set it up, God knows when. So it wouldn't surprise me if that one is going to be dead soon. I wonder what their lifespan is. Let me find out. Can live up to 10 years. This is AI, so take it with a grain of salt. Siamese algae eater fish can live up to 10 years while it's giving me multiple answers. Apparently, there's also an SAE connector designed to SAE J1772 standards and can last for over 27 years with daily use. So there you go. But the Siamese algae eater fish can live up to 10 years. So I guess we're getting up towards the end of their lifespan. They were probably, 4 or 5 years old at least when I bought them. And that's been 6 or 7 years ago. So they're probably at least 10 by now. Oh, 3-gallon fish tank. That won't be too hard to move. Hope everything goes all right. I actually never noticed any babies in this tank. I do have a ton of live bears in there. I got all those platies. If they do have babies, then they don't last very long at all. Normally, when I've got a bunch of live bears in a tank, even if I've got a bunch of other predatory fish, like a tank full of discus, for example, some of the babies will survive. Even in my tetra tank, some of the babies occasionally survive, and I'll see the young tetras start to grow up. And it's not like there's not enough, vegetation and hiding places in this tank for the fish to go. But I never do really see much in the way of baby live bearers, so I guess they probably are helping keep the tank fed. Oh, here's my other Siamese algae eater. He's on this flat rock right here. He's about to make an appearance. See him? He looks normal. He doesn't look all fat and bloated like that other one. That other one, I'm telling you, by Sunday night's live stream, I'm going to be telling you how I flushed him down the toilet. Actually, he's big enough that I probably throw him outside. I don't think I'm going to flush him down the toilet. All right, everybody. I know I'm going to regret this, but I'm going to start puffing on this stupid thing. Bah. Mango is not a very good flavor either. Yeah, I have a 20-gallon upstairs. I had to find a fish that would take care of the overpopulation because it was just full of platies. And I mean, I would take nets full of platies out of there and put them in tanks down here, just basically as feeders. One of my viewers was moving and they had to get rid of a bunch of their fish, and they had a lot of live bears, like a lot of live bears. And I took most of them. And these platies came from that batch. I've got another 40 breeder that's got a bunch of different platies in it. That came from that guy. Got a bunch of guppies from him and a few other tetras and stuff like that have all gone in different tanks. But I threw a bunch of the stuff he gave me into my goldfish pond. I don't know if you have seen my goldfish pond. We're actually working on it at the moment. But I have a whole entire pond in the middle of my room. And I got a bunch of different stuff in there. That's not just goldfish. I got tropical fish in there. I got the goldfish. I got koi. Don't have any catfish, believe it or not. I want a catfish in there, but I don't have any. Yeah, I like the green lanterns. I don't know if you guys can see the little puffs I'm puffing in front of the camera there, but I'm puffing away. And I'm assuming at some point that mushroom juice will start kicking in. It doesn't take terribly long. I think last night I noticed within about half an hour or so I could feel it starting to come on to me. And just those puffs I did. I've been standing here for what, a couple minutes, puffing away. I did 6 or 8, 10 puffs there. I can feel that. Again, it doesn't feel like I'm tripping, but I feel different than I did before I started doing that. There's absolutely no doubt. I feel different than I did a minute ago. I had white clouds years ago in my 29 miscellaneous, and I basically just kept them until they died off, and then I replaced them with other stuff. But I've never really kept them. All right, I guess we can keep going with the filter that we've got in the pond right now. Let me go around and swirl up the water before we sit down. We'll get the water all mucky again. So if you missed it in the beginning, this is basically an open bottomed bucket with a screen in the bottom. I laid a bunch of filter material over the screen, and I got a pond pump in the bottom, just pumping water up into the bucket. The idea is I keep the muck swirled up enough that we just pump it through the filter, and pretty soon we've got clear water again. And I do need to get over here and unclog the pump for the waterfall here. All right, so that'll keep the water a little murky. We got the water flowing properly again, so we got nice, good outflow down here at the bottom, flowing through my hollow log. It's getting so overgrown you can barely even see the water in there anymore. But it's a pretty good amount flowing out of there. And then this is the tank that I've got the other live bears. I got a bunch of platies. I got some swordtails, some Sankey swordtails. That's a female right there. That's another one of the female Sankeys. So bunches of live bears in this tank. I'm not sure what these are. They're platies, and they're sort of orange, but they've got blue in the middle of them. All right, let me get around there, and we will commence with the having a seat part of the evening. Oh, and my ammonia test that I completely forgot about is still sitting over there and is showing no ammonia. Shirley, how are you doing this evening? Yeah, Shirley, I didn't see you until just now. I'm just checking messages and getting caught up. I still do water changes. Yeah, I just didn't see that you had joined us there, Shirley. That's all. I still do water changes in my, even in, heavily planted tanks. I still do the water changes, but they're not super necessary for water chemistry reasons. I go over this a lot, and I'll be happy to talk about it again tonight if you want me to get into the whole ins and outs of water changes and why we do them, and what we're accomplishing by doing them, etc. I would be happy to, but I do not have any tanks set up in a way that I would consider to be water change free tanks, or tanks that you just don't ever have to worry about doing water changes on. I just don't have any set up like that. You can set a tank up like that, but it's a pretty sophisticated setup, and you got to have it done just right, and it's got to be a very low density, stocking, very low amount of food going into the tank. Again, it's a pretty sophisticated system to get basically a no touch aquarium. You just add a little bit of food occasionally, and it sort of maintains itself. To really get a good no touch type water fish tank, you almost have to get it to the point where you don't even have to put additional food in it. If everything stays in the tank and it's fully self-maintained, then you're not adding anything. It's being converted to this or changed over to that, but you're not adding anything. If you're feeding the fish, even if it's once every other day, just a little pinch of food, you're taking stuff from outside the tank, nutrients, proteins, etc., ammonia, and then you're adding that to the tank. And so every time you feed, you're adding outside stuff to the tank. So if you really want to set a tank up to be water change free, then you also need to set it up so that the fish that are in there, or whatever small animals you have in there, can feed off of the algae that grows, and and it's almost self-maintaining at that point. Again, very sophisticated type setup to get it to where you just don't have to do the maintenance on it. In my case, when I do water changes on my tank, it's for a lot of different reasons. One of them being that I have a YouTube channel and I need content. I need to do stuff when I'm in front of the camera, when I'm doing my live streams, or at least I used to. I don't really give a shit anymore. And doing water changes was a thing to do. I could do tank maintenance and people would watch, and I could do the water changes. It didn't necessarily need a water change, but it wasn't going to hurt it to do it either. And so I've got content. Another reason might be to just physically remove detritus as it's building. I can feel those mushrooms rolling onto me like while I'm explaining this. That mushroom juice I drank is definitely rolling onto me like right now. The detritus can build up in the corners, and you may want to get that out of there. Nutrient levels can build up. I've heard people talk about hormones from the fish being present in the water. I haven't seen a lot of science to back that up, but I have heard people say that that's an issue. And so doing a water change from time to time gets those excessive hormones out of the water. Again, take that one with a grain of salt. Sometimes I just want to wipe the glass down, and doing that with a full tank can be splashy and messy. So I throw a hose in there, drain some water. And if I'm going to drain some water, I may as well just do a water change and drain a lot of water. And so I do a water change for that reason. Maybe I need to do filter maintenance, and while I'm doing the filter maintenance, may as well just do a water change while I'm in here. As far as needing to do a water change, the only reason you would really need to do one from a water chemistry point of view would be if your pH is getting out of whack, like you don't have any carbonates in the water. Again, this is all sort of tied together with the water chemistry. If you find that your carbonate hardness has completely gone and there's no buffering capacity to your tank. You may get wild pH swings. You may get a pH crash. In that case, you'd want to do a water change to refresh the water and put remineralized water in the tank. Now, my recommendation would be to keep a source of minerals in the tank like I do. I have a bag of crushed coral in my filters, and that always allows a little bit of mineralization to get back into the water. But that's really the main reason to do a water change, is if your carbonate hardness gets too low, or if your water hardness gets too hard, because water chemistry can change over time. And if you have a little bit of hardness in your water, that can build up over time with top offs, and as water evaporates out and you're topping it off. And so eventually, if your actual water hardness, not your total dissolved solids, but if the water hardness starts getting up there a little too much, you may want to do a water change for that reason. The idea of doing one weekly and then monthly or whatever, that's just kind of a beginner's baseline, give you an idea of something that's going to be safe to do. And then as you learn more and figure out what's going on with your specific setup and how you manage it, you can adjust your water change, schedule to the way you manage your tank and what's in it and how you feed it and whether it's planted or not. All those things are going to factor into how you do your tank maintenance. So the recommendations you see are basically the most vaguest and generic of recommendations that, knowing nothing about your aquarium, if I give you these recommendations, it's probably not going to be a bad suggestion for you, And so you start there, and then as you grow your knowledge base, you can also expand your own specific, water change schedule. Yeah, I can't believe I got through that. All right, shell dwellers, get most water changes. Yeah, the reason most people talk about doing water changes is because nitrate levels build up in the tank. And nitrate levels in the tank really isn't that big of a concern until you start getting into just like absolutely outrageous numbers, into the hundreds and hundreds of parts per million. Father Fish has famously claimed to me personally that many of his tanks regularly get over 500 parts per million nitrates, and he isn't the slightest bit concerned about them because nitrates just really aren't a concern. I think the whole thing about nitrates being such an issue was, I don't know where it came from, but it was certainly perpetuated by the industry, because the industry wants you to do as many water changes as you can. If you do water changes, you're going to need new filter material, you're going to need water conditioner, you're going to need all these things they tell you need to do with every water change. You got to put fresh carbon in there, and this and that and the other thing, when in reality you don't have to do a lot of that stuff. You don't need carbon. Depending on what kind of water you use, you may not even need water conditioners. I don't use water conditioners, but I also have well water, so I don't have any chlorine or chloramine or anything like that in my water to worry about. But a lot of it, I think, is just industry stuff. They sell you on more stuff. They just want you to buy more stuff. And the more frequently you're doing tank maintenance, the more frequently you're going to have to buy stuff. I think it's as simple as that, honestly. Money. When you say steel sides, are you talking about just like the corner beams? They have the metal rundown, or are you talking about actual steel sides on them? Because I've never seen one like that. Yeah, that's what I thought you meant. I've seen those style tanks. Almost looks like a kind of tank you'd put in an art, you know, if you had like an Art Deco vibe going on, you could use those tanks. I think they'd work well in that. Yeah, my 29 miscellaneous probably gets 2 water changes a year, if that. And I have a tank that I keep upstairs for my wife. She enjoys looking at the fish, but she doesn't do anything with keeping them or anything. She just feeds her tank every day and then tells me if she notices a problem, which often is not soon enough. I actually walked by there the other day and I could hear some noise coming out of there. So I stuck my head in the room and the filter's in there just rattling away, bone dry, just the impellers just rattling around in the fucking plastic in the bottom. And so who knows how long it's been since the tank had no water flowing through it. You know, the filter completely dried up for some reason. So I got that flowing and running again. And so I do the maintenance on all that. She doesn't even always necessarily notice when something's going wrong with it. I've caught the heater overheating in there before, where she didn't notice that it was getting really hot. So she's a fish looker. I'm the fish keeper. So I call it my wife's tank, but it is really, you know, I do all the maintenance and everything on it. But because it's out of sight, out of mind, it's in my wife's room, and I don't really stick my head in there very often. I don't think about it. And so that tank gets maybe 2 water changes a year. Occasionally, if she leaves the door open and I walk by and see the, you know, algae all over the glass or something, I'll get in there and I'll wipe the glass down, maybe do a quick filter change or something like that. But I hardly ever do any maintenance on that tank. And that rarely ever has any issues, never really have any dead fish in it. When I do have dead fish, it's the, you know, nothing lives forever. Eventually fish die. And so the best fish keeper in the world has to deal with dead fish occasionally. When you have hundreds of fish, some of them are going to be aging out, especially live bears that only live a few years to begin with, 3, 4, 5 years for a platy or something like that. That's a pretty good run if you get, you know, 3 or 4 years out of a platy most of the time. Yeah, I'm not too into the big fish either. I prefer the larger tank, but then I like a big community in it. I like a lot of schooling fish. This tank kind of just happened. I didn't really design it to be a discus tank. This used to be a very like African themed tank at once upon a time. I had Congo tetras in there. I had a ton of poma, a few other fish that could have been miscellaneous from anywhere, but it looked like a very African themed tank. And then eventually it just kind of became my discus tank, and I got a bunch of discus and everything in there now. But most of my tanks will have, you know, like primary fish and then secondary fish and then bottom fish. And the bottom fish aren't necessarily any less significant. Like, for example, in my gourami tank, one of my bottom fish is a striped Raphael that's about 10 inches long. So definitely a very prominent and significant fish in that tank. He's not just sort of kept in there as maintenance. It is a feature fish, but he lives on the bottom. And so I've got my discus, my angelfish, and then in the gourami tank, it used to just be the gouramis, and the discus and the angelfish ended up in there secondarily. But then I've got a school of tetras in there, and the tetras would be the secondary fish. And that's the way like my 29 is set up. I've got the angelfish, and then I got some schooling tetras, and then I got my loaches down on the bottom. My 40, I've got my angelfish, I've got the live bears, and then I got some plecos down on the bottom. Actually, that 125 has a large school too, because I got the silver dollars in there and then some other miscellaneous. My 55 doesn't have the feature fish. That's just schooling fish. It's just a tank full of tetras, basically. I do have some catfish on the bottom, and I do have a shark in there that makes the rare appearance, but it's basically a tank full of tetras. So I guess that's not really my overall theme in a tank, but even this 20 here has the betta fish in it, and then it's got some guppies. So I generally have like a main fish or feature fish, and then sort of secondary fish that are just added there to, you know, just fill out the community. You can't have a community fish with a fish in it. Obviously, you got to have a lot of other fish in there too. All right, let me check my filter here and see if I need to replace it. Yeah, exactly. 6 to 8 inches is about where I want to be, like with my tilapia, my tenopoma, striped Raphael, the other discus or the other cichlid I have in there, that Geo, the pearl cichlid, that's going to get about 8 inches when it's fully grown. That's about where I want. I do have a pleco in that tank that's a foot long. He's a little over a foot long now. And he's kind of a lot of fish. That's a big fish. It's a 125, so it's not too much fish, but a foot of pleco is a lot of fish because plecos are not dainty fish. They're thick and they're solid and they're big and bulky. So a foot long pleco is a lot of fish. It puts a lot of bioload in that tank. Yeah, that's true, Bob. You get enough of the discus and everything together, then the fish that stand out are the oddballs. The rainbow fish in this tank really are the standout fish. All right, let us have a quick look in the bucket here, dear Eliza. Oh, yeah. We're about 2 inches of standing water in the bottom of the bucket, so that lets you know that the filter is as full as it's going to get. So let's go ahead and undo this. I don't have any more filter material in here. So let me go, actually, I'll let that water drain out of there, and then I'm going to go cut a piece. But you can see how much water is coming out of this hose here. It really blasts out of there. The pump I'm using is a vigorous fountain pump. So you all keep on enjoying the discus there for a minute, or here, why don't you just have a look at the whole grandiose fish room for a moment. Let me go cut another piece of material, and I'll be right back. Although I always say that as though I can't keep talking while I'm in here. I know I'm physically not in the room anymore, but you can still hear me. So just cut it wide enough to fill the bottom of the bucket. And of course, it's a big roll that's all folded over on itself. So once you cut one strip like so, you end up with something that looks like this. And then once you unfold that, you actually end up with a long sheet of the stuff. So now we'll cut a piece of this off and fold it up to make the next layer of filter material. And we'll do at least one more cycle of filters. I'll basically just keep the filter running while we're down here tonight, and whenever the live stream ends, I'll shut it all down, and that'll be whatever filtration we're going to get for the night. And I don't necessarily make it thick, just like a layer or two. I used to make it really thick. I'd stack the stuff in there. You don't really get any extra filtration out of that. Once it's kind of gunked up and gross and looking like this, that's about as much filtration as you're going to get. And so if you do that on a larger scale, you could probably get some more out of it, but I think ultimately you're just wasting your filter material. It's easier just to put in enough to get the bottom covered with like 2 layers deep, and then just let it start collecting and filtering. And as it starts to get clogged up, it'll pack itself to the bottom. Well, if you guys were going to see me take a dive into the pond, that would have been it. If my foot had slipped, I'd have gone over. That would have sucked because I would have fallen right into that instead of falling into the pond proper. All right. Now that we've got that up and going again, let me take these 2 old filters out of here and throw these away. Or at least throw them in the sink until they're done draining. And then I can throw them away. All right. Get the light turned back off. And let me come back around and sit back down. All right. 13 of you left. Sounds like you like the oddball fish with all the rope fish and butterfly fish. I've never had a rope fish. I did have a butterfly fish, and I had tanopoma. That's not technically a leaf fish, but it gets sold as a leaf fish all the time. So I don't know if that's what you're talking about or not. Yeah, I don't do any outside fish. I tried keeping some in the little pond I got out back, but it's a really shallow pond. It's only about, I don't know. I think if there was nothing in the bottom of it, I think it would be about 15 inches deep in the center, in the deep part. But since I have gravel and stuff in the bottom for like an undergravel filtration system, the deepest part is only like a foot deep. And we had a cold snap, not last winter, but the winter before. I had a couple goldfish in there that I was going to try to overwinter in it, and they did fine right up until we had a really cold snap for about a week, and the pond froze solid. And when it thawed, I had dead goldfish. I mean, obviously, you can't freeze them solid. So until I can afford to get out there and dig the pond deeper and put a bigger, liner in it and all that kind of stuff, I'm basically treating our little outdoor pond as though it's just sort of a water feature. It's got some insects and stuff, a few frogs living in it, but I don't keep any fish in it anymore. The birds and the cats and everything use it as a water source, and they drink out of it. So it's nice having it out there, and you can hear the babbling, splashing water in the waterfall and everything, but I don't keep fishing it at all. This pond actually has 4 koi in it, I think, and then the rest are goldfish. And the koi are getting pretty big. At some point, they're going to have to get moved because this pond's only about 200 gallons, and koi get big eventually. So at some point, they're going to have to get moved out of here. Whether they get moved outside here or I just have to get rid of them and take them somewhere and donate them or whatever. I don't know. We'll see. It was a toad retreat in the spring. We had 1 million toad eggs in there. And recently, I'm assuming, I don't know which one of the frogs does the croaking noise with the bullfrogs. Is it the male doing the bullfrogging, calling for the female, or is the female, the large one, calling for the male? Because we had a big bullfrog out in the pond for a while. And then the other day, my wife pointed out that the big frog was gone. All we had was this little tiny frog, and it looked exactly the same. It had that same bullfrog look to it, except it was about that big. Its little head was sticking out of the water. And then the next day I saw both of them in there together. So the big one that's still in there is still in there. And now there's also a little one. So I'm assuming the little one is the male that has now joined the female, and the female was the big one that was doing the croaking, the bullfrogging. So I don't know which one is which anymore, but hopefully we're going to have frog eggs in the pond here pretty soon. Yeah, I wish I could get a 3-foot deep trough dug. So I'm assuming it was the female calling for the male. And the big one in the pond is the female because she's 5 times the size of the small one. right. No, female bullfrogs do not typically make the loud, deep croaking sounds associated with bullfrogs. Only male bullfrogs croak to attract mates and establish territory, while males produce a similar juggo-rum call. Female bullfrogs are generally silent or may emit high-pitched scream or a soft, simple release call. All right, well, I didn't hear any of that. So is the little tiny one that showed up a young one or just a new frog that's not responding to the mating call? Now I am perplexed. All I know is we got a great big old bullfrog in the pond that's been croaking for a couple of weeks. And we now have a little teeny tiny version that looks exactly the same. It's just about a 1/5 scale model. I'm in Maryland. And I assume it's a bullfrog. It makes that noise. Now that I've sat down, let me stand back up again and just look up what a bullfrog looks like to make sure I'm looking at the right kind of frog. Maybe it's some other kind of frog. No, that's definitely not the kind of frog I've got. I bet I've got something stupid like an American frog or something like that. I'm going to type in American frog and see what I get. Nope, it just got an American bullfrog. What is the difference between a bullfrog and an American frog? Adult green frog. Let me look up green frog because that's probably what I've got in the pond. Nope, that's not it either. That is a really green frog. All right, let me try looking up Maryland frogs. All right, this kind of looks like what I've got. That's sort of like what's in my pond. That's a regular old toad. We got a million of those in the backyard. Hang on, let's do images here. So these are what we've already seen. Yeah, that little guy right there. It says green frog. That one, that's a pickerel frog, so that's definitely not it. That right there is what we have in our pond. And it says green frog, but I don't know if that's the green frog or not. Yeah, it says green frog. So this right here is what we've got. So I always call it a bullfrog just because of the croaking noise it makes, but I now know that it is not a bullfrog. And I learned something new today. I learned 2 new things today. I'll tell you the other thing I learned in a minute when I sit back down. And I'll even tell you how I learned it, because I think thinking is important. All right. The frog that we've got in the pond now could probably eat like guppy-sized fish without any problem at all. Even like platies or like a live bear size. I think that frog out there would be able to eat no problem. Yeah, but when I first saw the description of a green frog, it showed one of the, it almost looked like a tree frog. It was like a bright lime green little tiny frog, and that's what said green frog. And so when I saw the next picture that said green frog and it looked like my frog, That's not the same frog as I just saw being labeled as a green frog. So one of those labels wasn't correct, and I didn't know which one was not correct. My assumption was the little frog that was bright green was the actual green frog, and mine was something different. But apparently I just have a common green frog out in my pond. So today I learned how to pronounce what I used to call tinnitus. The ringing in the ears sound is actually tinnitus. And I've heard it pronounced both ways before. And I always thought tinnitus was the wrong way of saying it. I assumed that it was people that didn't actually know how to say it, saw it, thought it was pronounced tinnitus, and said it that way rather than the way it's actually pronounced. I was wrong. My wife suffers from it. She was talking about it the other day. And I got to wondering, like, why do people pronounce it tinnitus? It's clearly tinnitus. You know, itis is a medical suffix. It's a commonly used medical suffix. And then my next thought was, yes, but it's a suffix that means inflammation of. That's what itis means. If you got laryngitis, it's an inflammation of your larynx. Tonsillitis, inflammation of your tonsils. Appendicitis, inflammation of your appendix. So inflammation of your eardrum, like suddenly tinnitus wasn't making sense anymore, because if itis means inflammation of, what the fuck is inflamed in my ears? That's not what tinnitus is. And so I said, all right, let's look up tinnitus and see if it actually is the suffix itis or not. And it's not. It's us, not is. So it's tinnitus, not is. It also has two N's, which makes it tinnitus. And so I watched a YouTube video that was a doctor talking about it, who's an ear specialist and specializes in treating tinnitus, and said exactly everything I just said. He said, while a lot of people do call it tinnitus, it's not, because it's not spelled tinnitus. Itis is blah, blah, blah. Just explained exactly everything I just went through in my own thought process. So I kind of got there ahead of him and realized it is pronounced tinnitus, and it is. And those are the reasons why. There's no actual inflammation going on in anything in your ears. It's an overactive nerve impulse that's just basically sending random signals to your brain that just come across as a ringing noise, because it's not a real signal. It's got nothing to do with the inflammation of anything. And so it's not tinnitus, it is tinnitus. And now you know. Well, the doctor did say basically, like, nobody's going to tell you you're saying it wrong if you say tinnitus, because we all know what you're saying and we all know what you're talking about. But medically speaking, there is a correct way of saying it, and it's tinnitus. It's not tinnitus, because it's whenever you hear itis, it's always, that's the condition. That's a description of what's going wrong. So tendinitis is an inflammation in your tendons, like tennis elbow is tendinitis in your elbow. If there's ever an itis on the end of it, itis, that means inflammation of. And it actually translates from the Greek, itis, inflammation of. That's a direct literal translation of the word itis, is inflammation of. And I always thought that's how tinnitus was spelled. I didn't realize it was spelled with a US on the end, and that's what threw me. So once I looked that up, I found out that I was wrong again. Hey, Dean, how are you? Oh, I can imagine it's annoying. I get it every now and again, but it's very faint, and it passes. It just happens for a little while, and then it just sort of goes away. But even that is annoying. I can't imagine if you just had a continual sensation of that. A lot of people that work in loud industries, if you work in a factory, now we have hearing protection and stuff like that, but back in the day you just worked in the fucking factory all day, around all that heavy machinery. Truck drivers, it was common. People that worked in tunnels, doing construction in tunnels,
Anybody in these really, really loud environments, by the time you get to your 40s, you just got this constant ringing in your ears because of all that. So it must suck to have had that from a teenager. Yeah, you probably didn't even know it was something that was unusual or that other people didn't experience until you got a little older. Probably just that was just part of your experience until you found out otherwise. All right, let's check on my filter here. Oh, we got plenty of filtration left. Got a lot of work. So, anything specific on anybody's minds while we sit and chat? I'll stick around at least till 10 tonight. And I think by then we'll get a good full secondary filtration. In fact, I'm going to get up and swirl some water around. Zuri, how are you? Yeah, exactly, Dean. That's what I thought. I do have some sort of no filter, no CO2 tanks. Well, all of my tanks are no CO2 tanks. The pond we're working on right now doesn't really have a filter in it. That's why I'm doing like I almost think about this as like a dialysis kind of filtration. I let it go until all of the detritus and everything on the bottom is down in the rocks. I have big like river pebble, like big pebbles and river stones on the bottom. And eventually the detritus and stuff will build up in there that as the fish start swimming around and rooting around, it gets the water all stirred up and murky. And so once every few months, I will do this sort of filter the water. Sometimes I'll do a really big water change and just pump all the muddy water out. And then other times I will just do this. I did a water change not too long ago on this pond, and so I don't see any point in doing it again. I just have a filter in the bottom of this bucket, and I got a pump down in the pond, and we're just pumping water through. And as long as the fish are keeping the water stirred up, again, we're just doing almost like a dialysis machine. At the end of the live stream tonight, I'll take all this down, and we'll be back to just having my pond again. And then there's no filtration in the pond, unless you're talking about like biofiltration. And so I've had this conversation a lot of times too about what a no filter tank really is and whether there is a no filter tank. I do believe there is such a thing as a no filter tank, but you have to go all the way down to like Tom and Jerry goldfish bowl sitting on the table level of tank to truly be a no filter tank. It just depends on how you're defining filter. If we look at my 40 breeder over there in the corner, let's see, where's my finger? This one with the spotlight over it, that doesn't have a filter in it per se, but I do have a couple little power heads moving water around, and I do have an air stone in it. And of course, it's got all of the plants and all of the biofiltration happens internally within the tank. So I don't have a mechanical filter on it. I don't have anything with filter floss in it. I don't have anything that's pumping water through the system, but it's clearly the water's being filtered. It's you know, so there's filtration in the tank. It's just biofiltration, not mechanical filtration. My 29, let me do a hit off my bowl here, and then I'll show you my 29. We'll get up and take a walk. I always say that the chief purpose of a filter is to move water around. It's the water flow that is important. So if we look at my 29 here, I use this as an example all the time. I don't know when the last time I actually changed those filter pads or bio pads or anything, but you can clearly see the water's not flowing through them in any way at all. It's just flowing over, or we're just getting the emergency backflow down through the middle. And I do not care. I have not changed these filters in so long. I haven't even thought about it because I don't care. What I'm getting out of my filter here is water circulation. It's pulling water up out of the bottom of the tank and it's pumping it through there. It's getting it aerated and oxygenated and all the gas exchange is happening. Any of the biofiltration that I need to happen is happening within the tank. And as far as the mechanical filtration, I just let all of the stuff, detritus and stuff, break down, and it filters down into the gravel and we never see it again. And so I don't really have to get in there and do anything. This is my most maintenance-free tank. I hardly ever do anything to this tank. And it looks like that. We can start to see some green spot algae. Not only can you see it on the back of the tank, but you can see it on the glass right here in the front. And so those green spots on the glass need to come off of there. But other than that, I don't have algae growing all over everything. We don't have detritus and crud all over everything on the bottom. And do you call this a filterless tank? Or do you call this a filtered tank? It's got a filter on it. I mean, we're looking at the filter right there. Technically, that is a power filter. But functionally, it is a power head. It's not filtering anything. It's just a power head. It's moving water around the tank. So I could literally take that off of there and replace it with the power head, and it wouldn't change anything in the tank at all. So is that a filtered tank or is that unfiltered? I don't know. That's up to you to decide. I kind of think of it as being unfiltered because functionally it is. Just because you got something that looks like a fish filter on there, an aquarium filter, if it's not actually doing anything, is it a filter? If a filter fell in the woods and there was no water there to be filtered, would it still filter? It's one of those kind of questions. Well, like I said, it just depends on how you define filtered. The only thing that I tend to think of as a truly unfiltered tank is the, like I say, just the straight up glass fish bowl. There's not even any biofilm in the tank to do anything. There's just nothing. Just the ammonia is in the water, and once every day or two, you got to dump that water out. I remember when I was a kid, my mom got us a little goldfish, or we wanted it at the carnival or something. I have no idea where it came from, but we had a goldfish in a bowl. And I remember my mom complaining, like every couple of days, like she would leave it till it stank. And then, the fish bowl would be all smelly and gross. And then she would put the fish in a glass of water on the kitchen counter and then dump the fish bowl out and wash the fish bowl and scrub it and get it all nice and clean and everything. Fill it back up with water right from the tap. She never put any water conditioner in it or anything. It was Baltimore City water. And put the goldfish right back in the bowl and sit it back on the table. And that was our goldfish bowl. That is a filterless tank. If you've got plants and you've got substrate, you've got decor and some rocks and some little caves in the bottom and all that stuff, after a while, you're going to build up a biofilm, a biodiversity that lives in that tank that's going to be your nitrogen cycle. It's going to be all the little microbial life, bacteria, archaea, whatever you want to call them, however you want to define it, that's going to process and break down all of those ammonia compounds, and all the waste products are going to get broken down. As long as you've got good water circulation, good aeration, the breaking down or the eating, everybody says, oh, the ammonia gets eaten by the bacteria, and it's not really being eaten. It's being oxidized. And so that's where the water circulation comes in. You need good gas exchange because you need plenty of oxygen in the water, not so much for your fish to breathe, but you need oxygen in the water for all those other processes to happen. All that nitrogen cycle requires oxygen. You're oxidizing the ammonia. You're oxidizing the nitrite. When all of that fish poop is breaking down and being broken down into the malm, that's an oxygen intensive process. All of the little microbes that are breaking that shit down and processing it and all that stuff, it's oxygenation is needed for that. And so the water circulation is keeping all of that happening. That's filtration. You're filtering the bad chemicals out of the water, just in the same way you think of like clams or oysters or filter feeders. They're processing that stuff and then spitting it back out. Filtered. Is a clam a water filter? Technically, yeah, it is. And so bio scrubbers, those are filters. You know, they're pulling stuff out of the water, and that's filtering it. So a biofilter is a type of filter, and when you've got a lot of stuff going on in your tank, that is your biofilter. You don't need that little sponge in your aquarium. You don't need those bio balls or those ceramic rings or whatever if you've got a tank that looks like this. It's not so much that the plants are using the ammonia and all that stuff. They will to a degree, but what these plants are really doing is they're providing tons of surface area for microbial life to live that allows for the breaking down of all of those chemicals in your water. So good circulation and lots of surface area, and you've got filtration. So you don't need a physical mechanical filter on the back of the tank to still say filtration is happening in that tank. And I know I'm being pedantic here, but it's a good conversation to have because it's not a simple cut and dry filtered or unfiltered tank. You know, again, I know what people mean when they say, is that an unfiltered tank? Technically, no, it's not, because it has a filter hanging on the back of it. But if it's not plugged in, you know, or if it's not working, is it still a filtered tank? That one's plugged in and running water, but it's not doing what a filter is supposed to do. So do you still call it a filtered tank? And obviously we've decided that, yeah, we're still going to call it a filtered tank, but it's not doing anything that an actual filter does. It's like saying I've got air conditioning in my car. The compressor just doesn't work right now. All right, I guess technically you've got air conditioning in your car, but functionally you don't have air conditioning in your car if your fucking compressor is not working. And so that's kind of the situation with my 29. It is a filtered tank, but the filter is just not working right now. Yeah, well, carp and goldfish, they have a special ability to deal with ammonia the way other fish can. I saw an article about it one time. It was really fascinating. But there's a reason goldfish were the first fish that were kept, and koi were the first fish that were really, kept. They're for genetic reasons too. They're very easy to manipulate genetically, but they can also survive in like stagnant water better than any other kind of fish can. So goldfish and carp really are adorable little bastards. That's for sure. Hey, Eugene, how are you this evening? Oh, let's see. Do bettas need to breathe air, or if they didn't, would they perish? I am not 100% sure about that. My assumption has always been that they didn't need to breathe air, just like a Cory. You know, Corys will occasionally swim to the top, gulp air, and swim back down. I don't know that they need to do that, but they're capable of doing that in case the water is poorly oxygenated. That's the way I've always interpreted it. I don't know. Let me do a quick Google on that. That's a good question. I'm curious now. My assumption is that as long as they were in well oxygenated water, they didn't have to breathe air at all. They just could. And that allowed them to live in poorly oxygenated water. All right, I asked a really specific question here. Do bettas need to breathe air in a well oxygenated tank? This is the AI, so take it with a grain of salt because AI is just scraping other search results and blending them together. So we might get some bullshit in here, but according to the AI, yes, betta fish, also known as Siamese fighting fish, need to breathe air from the surface even in well oxygenated water due to their unique labyrinth organ, a specialized organ that allows them to breathe atmospheric air directly. While they can also extract oxygen from the water through their gills, this is often insufficient on its own, especially in their natural low oxygen environments, making access to the surface crucial for their survival and health. So that's why I was questioning it. They do have the labyrinth organ, and I began to wonder if, even if they were getting enough oxygen through their gills, what would happen to that labyrinth organ if it never got fresh air moved into it? Or would it fill with water? Would it become toxic because of the gas exchange? Would it just fill with CO2? And then suddenly the labyrinth organ is now a reservoir of carbon dioxide inside the fish. And so, yeah, if they have that labyrinth organ in there, that needs to stay air filled. And that makes sense that whether they're getting plenty of oxygen in the water or not, they still need to go to the surface and gulp air to get that labyrinth organ in their head refreshed with fresh air in it. So yes, they do. Hey John, how are you this evening? Give me a second, let me get caught up and I will get to your question there. Arc Knight, I was wondering where you were tonight. Got a cabinet with several angled wine bottle holders. You can fill them with beta containers instead. Oh, that's a cool idea. Yeah, lungfish are some strange fish. All right, let's see. John Lynch is asking if I lightly gravel vac pea gravel with live plants and root tabs. I will if it becomes unkempt. You know, I don't mind some detritus in the tank. First of all, let's clarify what I mean between detritus and mulm. I meant to say mulm a moment ago, not detritus. Detritus I think of as anything swirling around in the water column that is not already fully decomposed and broken down. Generally, the definition of detritus is just anything in the water column, anything in the tank that's floating around, you know, flotsam and jetsam kind of stuff would be considered detritus. I consider detritus the stuff that still is not broken down, little bits of leaf, whole bits of fish poop, uneaten fish food, all of that stuff I think of as detritus. Mulm is that stuff that you see in the corners. It's like a brownish tan color. It's really, really light and airy. There's like nothing to it. That's the stuff at the end of the process. That's broken down as completely as it can be broken down. There's nothing left to come out of it. There's no more nutrients being extracted out of it. It's just broken down mulm. I don't mind a little bit of that in the tank, in the corners and stuff. But once a little bit of that gets to be a lot of bit of that, then when the fish move around, it gets swirled up, and then you start getting the cloudy water during the feeding time. Because, you know, at that point, I will gravel vac. But when I gravel vac, even in my heavily, you know, thick gravel beds with my planted, I don't use root tabs or anything, but I do have a lot of planted tanks with the gravel. I do not scrunch the gravel vac down into the gravel. Don't do that. Not only do you not want to suck all that black gold up out of your gravel bed, leave that in there. Your plants love that, and it's good for your biofiltration. It's a good, healthy part of your tank to have all that black stuff down in your substrate. Leave it alone. The other thing is the root system within your plants. You know, a lot of the roots that we can see won't necessarily get damaged if you're in there even gently sort of scrunching around in the gravel and whatnot. But the roots that you can see, while important, are not the roots that you need to worry about. The roots you need to worry about are the ones that are all the way, just like in our bodies, our capillaries is where all the gas exchange and the food exchange, that happens all the way at the very, very, very tiniest little blood vessels in our body. The larger ones just kind of carry the blood. And a root system on the plant is the same way. The larger roots that you can kind of see are the carrier roots that are just funneling all of the nutrients and stuff. The roots that are important, or all the exchanges happening, are the roots that are so fine you can barely see them. Those get damaged extremely easily. And so even the lightest little bit of scrunching down into the gravel, while you may not kill the plant, you're probably doing more damage to its root system than you realize, even on a light scrunching. So whenever I do gravel vacuuming, if it's a tank that's got rooted plants in it, I just go over the surface. If some of the gravel lifts up, with it, and falls back down, that's fine. I don't stick the plastic into the gravel. I just go over the surface and remove anything that's just sort of superficial. Maybe that top little, again, you'll see some stuff sort of suck up out of the gravel on the top, but you don't really want to disturb the gravel bed any more than you have to, or you can do a lot of damage to your plant roots. I do give an deep dive when people ask me questions. That's one thing I will say. When somebody asks me a question, they get a fucking answer. They get a long ass, probably more answer than they ever thought they were going to get. All right. I think whatever mushroom juice I ate or drank is as on to me as it's going to be on to me. I don't really feel like I'm going any trippier here. So let's have a puff or two off of my little vape pen. This is a mushroom vape. This is not weed. This is mushroom. And I'm doing 3 puffs per puff. I'm getting really, really tired of the taste of fucking plastic mango, chemical mango. You feel it though. When I'm not already tripping, like if I'm relying only on this, I came down here this morning, clear-headed, first thing, in the day. I don't know, it was around lunchtime by the time I finally got down here to start having a puff. No weed, no nothing, hadn't smoked anything. I started with just this mushroom vape, and it never really did a whole lot other than make me feel weird. Did something, but it just kind of made me feel weird. Not like I keep relying it to, or relating it to being like on cold medicine is the way I felt. Once you're tripping, though, if you already had some mushrooms, and I did drink some mushroom syrup a little while ago, if you missed it, once you're kind of there, then having a puff off of this is that's twisting the crank a little bit. It definitely feels more trippy and less spacey than it does when it's just by itself. So this makes a nice little accessory to a trip. If you want to bump your trip up a little bit at some point, this is a nice little bump to it. I don't have to drink more syrup necessarily. I can just hit on this a little bit. It definitely has an impact. All right. Canister versus hang on the back. Before I get into that, while my head's still reeling, let's have one more swirl of the water. Get the water all murky again. This filter's starting to get clogged up, but at the rate it's getting clogged up, I really feel like they should be doing more. So let's get the water a little murkier. The difference between hang on the back and a canister filter, I am going to say the main difference is going to be, well, I should say the main reason to use one versus the other is going to be tank size. If you get anything above about a 40 breeder, you're getting into the territory where I just saw my shark in my 125 down there chasing the cichlid, chasing the geo cichlid around in there. A shark will chase any damn body. Once you get above about a 40-gallon tank, a hang on the back filter is just not really going to cut the mustard. It's just not enough filter for that size of a tank. And that's kind of the long and short of it if you're deciding which one you want to go for. I know they do make canister filters for small tanks. I just can't imagine why someone would want to set up a canister filter on something like a 20 or a 30-gallon tank. Just put a hang on the back. And it's the hang on the backs need to be maintained more frequently because the filter, you just got that one little filter pad and that clogs up pretty quickly, as you saw with my 29. If I swapped out those filters and cleaned out that filter on that 29, I would get, I don't know, maybe a few weeks before those filters were clogged up again and I had to replace them. Now, it takes a moment. It's easy. You just pop them out, throw the thing away, put a new filter on and pop it back in and you're done. But you have to do that frequently. Whereas the canister filters, as I've now proven, you can go a year or more. In fact, my 55 is now 14 months since I've done any canister maintenance on it. But with the canister filter, you can go much longer periods of time between filter maintenance. It's just a big pain in the ass when you do the filter maintenance. So it's kind of tit for tat, frequent little bit of maintenances or, very infrequent, a lot of maintenances. Do you mow the lawn once a week when its grass is only this tall and it's nice and easy? Or do you do it once every 3 months when the grass is knee deep and it takes you a fucking day and a half to get through it all? However you want to do it is up to you. But with tank size, again, once you get over a certain size, there's really no point in putting a hang on the back filter like on a 125 when I'm going to have a row of hang on the back filters along the back of it, or one massive. I can't imagine having a hang on the back filter on a tank that size. 55, yeah, you're kind of on the cusp. I used to have hang on the backs on my 55s. Ultimately, I decided I preferred the canisters because they're on the 55. A canister is just, it works. Like that's kind of the transition point. 40, you can still get away with the hang on the back, although I do put canisters on my 40s. 55 or bigger, you're probably just going to want to use a canister. The good thing about a canister is they're really customizable. I don't think it's necessary, but they have all the different trays in there. And so you can do one tray with a certain kind of biofiltration. You can do another tray that's got like in my case, I put a mesh pack of the crushed coral in there. So you got water flowing through there. That way I don't have to put, ornaments or something. If I want to mineralize my tank, I got two options. I got three. I could use the liquid. But if I want permanent mineralization in my tank, I can either do substrate, rocks, or ornaments that are going to be made out of calcium carbonate, and they're going to remineralize from within the tank and be visible. Or I can take a bag of calcium carbonate and put it inside my filter canister or canister filter, and you can't see it, but as the water flows over it, I am mineralizing my tank. So that is definitely a benefit of the canisters. Some hang on the back filters will give you the option of being able to customize them a little bit. You can maybe put a little something in the back area where the water's flowing. I will occasionally put like a handful of loose crushed coral in the bottom of a hang on the back filter, and that gives me a little bit of mineralization in my smaller tanks without having to see the white gravel. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. I've never bothered to get in here and get this out, but you see how I've got the nice dark substrate in the tank and it looks all nice and dark and everything, except I got calcium carbonate in the tank, and you can see all that white gravel all over the black substrate, and it looks like crap. Ideally, a lot of times when I do loose coral like this, I'll put it in the back, like, against the glass so you can't see it, but it's still in there. I did that in this tank, but these stupid fucking loaches, they kick the gravel everywhere and they've scattered it all over the tank. And so I'm going to go back to just putting it in the canister filter. For a while, I tried this tank without the canister filter on it, and that's why I put the gravel directly in the tank. but I have since gone back to putting the canister filter on it, and so now this is unnecessary, and I just need to get in there and vac it out and get all those little bits of white out of there. So that's the reason I don't like putting the mineralization in the tank directly, as opposed to just putting it in the filter, and then you can't see it, but it's still doing its job. I have very soft water, and if I don't add some mineralization, then I don't get any mineralization. I got no carbonate hardness. I got about 2 degrees carbonate hardness coming out of my ground. All right, we are pretty much done with this filter pad too, because we got standing water beginning to build up, and once you've got that, you're not filtering it fast enough anymore. So we're going to call it good. I'm going to take that down, and then we can hang out or wrap it up or do whatever. But let's get this shut down first. So the first thing I'm going to do is unplug the filter. All right, so that is the pond pump I've been using. It moves quite a lot of water. So I'm going to go put this back in the other room. Where it lives. Get the hose out of there. I make a little slip knot on the top of the bucket and I put a piece of wire through it. And then that way I make sure the hose doesn't fall out. It stays secure in the bucket. Dear Eliza. And so you can see that's just a bucket with no bottom. And then this is just a sieve for gravel or for garden soil. If you want to get your rocks and sticks and stuff out of your soil, you just put it in this and shake it, and anything bigger than a 1/4 inch gets stuck in there. And that's how I filter. I just stack them up, put a layer of filter in the bottom of the bucket, and then I just run a pump through it for a while. Make sure I keep the water stirred up and dirty, and there you go. So you can see what I mean. The way I refer to it is sort of like a dialysis of the fish tank. That's not a regular thing, but every so often we'll get in there and do a spot cleaning like that, or spot filtration. Get those out of there. Get my pieces of wood put away. So that is what the pond is supposed to look like. And the water still looks all murky. Look how murky that water looks. There's all kind of stuff in there you can't really see. You can kind of see the big piece of wood right here. It's got the moss growing on top of it. But there's also a big log that lays in the bottom. I got another piece of wood down here. And then, of course, the bottom has all the river gravel and everything on there. And then this end has all of the waterfall and plants and everything growing on it. I used to have a waterfall tank in the room here. Was actually one of the attractions of my channel for a long time. People tuned in because of my waterfall tank. It was a giant paludarium that had a big waterfall flowing into a 40 breeder. And then on the ground in front of the 40 breeder, I had another 20 long that was a separate tank, but it kind of looked like it was all part of the same system. It was cool. I liked it. I had a good time with it for a lot of years, but ultimately it was a huge pain in the ass. It leaked all the time. It was moldy. It stunk. It put so much moisture and humidity in the basement. And it was a giant, huge thing in the middle of the room. And so you couldn't look around the room. You had to walk around this giant fucking thing that took up all the space in the middle of the room. I finally got rid of that, and I got the bright idea of like building a koi pond, and boom, this is what I came up with afterwards, and I've never looked back. I'm so much happier with this koi pond than I ever was with that waterfall. This thing's fucking awesome. I absolutely love it. I think if anything happened and I had to like downscale and everything, I would probably get rid of all of my tanks before I would get rid of the pond. I would just keep the pond in the middle of the floor, and remove all the fish tanks rather than the other way around, because this pond is just awesome. I love it. I actually spend more time looking at that than I do my fish tanks. When I do come in here in the evening, sometimes I'll just kind of stand in the doorway and I'll look at the ponds rather than coming in and looking at the fish tanks. The first fish I kept as a fish keeper, bio wheels. If you've got a mad bio load, a bio wheel is a good idea. I know Penguin made a filter that had a bio wheel on it, and it just gives you really, really good gas exchange because of the way the wheel spins, and it's all that surface area that's being exposed to the, atmospheric air. That's gas exchange happening for you. Gas exchange is key to keeping your oxygen levels where they need to be. Remember, an air stone, a bio wheel, you creating surface agitation, water flowing from the filter down into the tank, carrying bubbles with it. None of these are adding oxygen. They are simply promoting gas exchange. They're facilitating gas exchange. So if the oxygen levels in the tank are being depleted by a lot of bioactivity that's going on, if there's an air stone, that air stone is going to allow for maximum gas exchange. It's going to facilitate the gas exchange. So if there's a need for oxygen and there's an excess of CO2 building up, that air stone will allow that excess CO2 to gas off and will allow more oxygen to bleed into the water. It's not putting oxygen into the water. It's allowing oxygen to move into the water. If it doesn't need to, it's not going to increase oxygen levels if it's already balanced out. When you inject CO2 like into a planted tank, you're adding CO2. You're raising the level of CO2 that's in that tank. And air stone is not adding oxygen. It's just blowing bubbles through the water. It's just fucking atmospheric air. If you set up an oxygen tank and had a regulator that was blowing oxygen bubbles in your tank, now you'd be adding oxygen. An air stone simply facilitates gas exchange. And anything like one of those bio wheels or anything like that is going to help keep your gases balanced out. So if you do have a really heavily bio load tank, you got a small tank with a couple of big fish in it or something, and you really need a lot of oxygenation going on, you need to facilitate the maximum amount of gas exchange possible. So an air stone and a bio wheel, those kinds of things actually are good ideas. Does everybody need a bio wheel? No. If you just got a regular tank with a few fish in it and some tetras swimming around in your 10-gallon tank, it's complete overkill. It's unnecessary. It's the same thing with carbon. Carbon serves a purpose. You use it when you need it. But just the idea of running carbon in your filters all the time, you're just wasting money on carbon. It's not doing anything. And in fact, you could be actually causing complications by running carbon all the time. So I just don't run it. It's one of those things that if there's a chance that it's going to be injuring my animals, it's not really serving me any purpose. And it's also costing me time and money. I'm definitely not doing it. Like, if it's going to cost me time and money and doesn't really serve any purpose, those two criteria alone are enough to make me not do it. If you add in the fact that it may also cause problems, I'm really not going to do it. And so I never run carbon in any of my tanks. And if I'm ever in a situation where I would need to, i.e., removing medication or removing excess tannin or something like that, I just do a water change and I remove it physically and replace the water with clean water. I never put carbon in my tanks. I just don't do it. I don't have a reason to. I don't need to. Doesn't serve any purpose for me. It costs me extra money and it's potentially harming my fish. So carbon just doesn't get used in any of my tanks. Oh, there is another Dan's Den out there. Well, I didn't even think about the apostrophe. Maybe I'll have to change that then. Hey, Kane, how are you this evening? Did you ever get sorted out on Discord? I saw the email and everything. I didn't know whether you finally got that sorted out. I see you got your membership, though. You got your green name up there with your little badge, so that's cool. Did you ever get the Discord sorted out? Frankie, hello? The common pleco can get to be over 24 inches. They can get up to 30 inches. And the common pleco is also, look up Trinidad pleco, because the Trinidad pleco is what is everyone calls a common pleco. No, I don't feed the frozen or live foods for the exact same reason I just said about the carbon. It costs me extra money. It's extra time and effort. And I have had problems with the frozen bloodworms in the past. I've never fully identified what the issue with the bloodworms is, and therefore I'm not, if it's something about it, I just don't know what it is. I don't know what the limit of just anything, like if it's got a warning on it, like don't feed this to your fish too often or it'll kill them. You know what? I'm not going to ever feed it to my fish. I'm just going to feed them the stuff that might kill them. But bloodworms, if you feed too many bloodworms to your fish, it'll kill them. I don't know why it kills them. I've got a friend that has a pretty good hypothesis. I don't know how to prove it, so it's not really any point in talking about it. I just don't know what the issue is. I just know that if you feed your fish too damn many bloodworms too often, it'll kill them. And I'm just not feeding that to my fish for whatever reason. As far as the mysis shrimp and the brine shrimp and all that, that's fine if you want to. Look at the nutrients and the ingredients and all that kind of stuff, and nutritional values on it, and you'll pretty quickly realize that you're just feeding your fish nothing. There's just not much to it at all. If you want your fish to get good nutrition, give them Tetra Pro flake food. That's got all the nutrition they need. It's properly balanced. It's got color enhancing stuff. Mysis shrimp, again, it's a little bit of protein and mostly water. It's 90% water that they're eating. So I just don't waste my time with it. The fish like it. To me, those things are like any kind of treat for a fish is not a treat for the fish. It's a treat for the fish keeper. The fish act the same fucking way. I don't care if I put flake food in there or I sprinkle crushed up cracker crumbs. My fish are going to go bananas and berserk eating it. If you give your dog a treat, it knows the difference between dinner time and treat time, and it behaves accordingly, and it knows it's getting something special. You as a pet owner get your emotional reward out of being nice to your dog or whatever. Psychologically, you're getting the same experience when you give your fish that treat. You feel like you're doing something kind for your fish. You're giving them that treat, those mysis shrimp or whatever. Nutritionally, though, it's not really doing a whole lot for them. And as far as it being a treat for the fish, they don't fucking care. They don't know the difference between mysis shrimp or cracker crumbs or flake food. They act the same every single time. So tell yourself, I'm giving my fish a treat today, and then just give them the regular old fish food. Watch them get all excited swimming around the tank eating their fish food, and feel good as a fish parent that you just gave your little babies a treat or something. It's just there for sales. I don't see the point in it. When you look at the nutritional value of all these live foods, they just don't seem to serve a purpose other than to make the fish keeper feel as though they're giving their pets a treat. Again, nutritionally, if you want to give your fish the best nutritional value, just give them prepared fish food. That's going to be the best nutritional value you can give them. So I'm not a big fan of the live or the frozen foods and stuff like that. If I catch the occasional cricket down here on the floor, I might throw it in a tank. I usually don't even do that. I usually just take it upstairs and throw it outside. I don't even kill the crickets. Let's see. If you put them through, they should be there, Kane. I don't do a whole lot on the Discord, so if you want me to see anything specifically, tag me in it. But a lot of other people do still participate over there and post pictures of their stuff and whatever. So if you're not getting any responses or interactions with everybody, again, let me know and I can go look into it and maybe see if it's not posting properly. But usually, if anybody that's having trouble, you have to have like a role assigned to you. I don't even know what that means really, but there's a way that you can get to the Discord, but then you just can't really access anything. And usually you'll know that right away. If you're posting things, then I think you should be okay. I think you shouldn't have to worry about it. Ben and Jerry's. Where was I now? Bloodworms. What fish foods do I like? I'll show you the fish foods that I like. I'm a big fan of the Tetra products. This is where most of my fish food sits. Not all of it, but most of it sits up here. So I use the Tetra Pro color enhancing crisps. This is what goes on most of my tanks. This is Hikari Vibrobites. They look like little bloodworms and they float around in the water, very similar to little bloodworms. Really like the Vibrobites. That's made by Hikari. I use the Hikari algae wafers. I'm a big fan of the Hikari algae wafers. I do not like Northfin. I like Hikari. I also use the Tetra color enhancing granules. Let's see. I do have some blackworm pellets. These are really high in protein, but I very seldom feed these to my fish. I kind of see these as a treat. They're so high in protein. They're ridiculous. They're like 55% protein. That's almost for like growing your fish out when they're young and you want to really load them with protein. You give them that. That's some sinking goldfish pellets. I got some floating goldfish pellets. And then that is I do pond food color flakes for the koi and the pond fish. Remember, goldfish and cold water fish tend to have slower metabolisms and do not need as much protein. So goldfish food and pond food is usually lower in protein than tropical food. So don't give your goldfish tropical food. You're giving way more protein than they need. Stick with goldfish food or pond food for those types of fish. And that is most of the food that I use. The other stuff I use for my fancy goldfish, I don't like my fancy goldfish eating from the surface because I don't want them gulping air. And so I do use the omega-1 goldfish sinking pellets for my fancy goldfish. And you can see it's got fancy goldfish right there on the front. So that's how you know it's good stuff. Of course, you know it's really good stuff if they have the Discus on the front. By law, if they have a Discus on the front of the package, it has to be premium quality product or they can get in trouble. And then I tend to buy my food in bulk. So this is my algae wafers. That's a kilo. I buy that by the kilo. This is my Hikari Vibrobites. Again, I buy that by the kilo. And this is unfortunately a bag of Northfin kelp wafers I bought once a ton of time and it's still sitting up here because I don't really like them and I don't really use them. I also buy my food in bulk and it sits back here stocking up. That's my goldfish food. Comes in a giant 2.2 pound, 1 kilo bucket. And then I got some stuff. This is all my shrimp from my puffer. My puffer died, and so I don't really have a need for those shrimp anymore. I should probably just throw those away. And then I got these floating cichlid sticks from somewhere, some point, which I don't ever really do anything with. I think I got them for my Tanapoma. And that big tub you can see back there is a kilo of the omega-1. I refill this using that bucket down there, and that's for my fancy goldfish. And that is my fanciest of fish there. That is Wednesday. And she is super fancy, and I do know she is a she. She was sexed before I got her. She was a gift from a viewer of mine that faded away. I haven't heard from in a long time, but she gave me one hell of a nice goldfish before she rolled out. I never have looked up the price to see what she roughly might have paid for that, but I'm suspecting it's probably a few $100s. And then the other two are PetSmart specials. They're fairly common. In fact, the calico looking one there, that one's Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown is just a fantail goldfish. He's not even fancy. The other two are Oranda. The white one is named Melissa Fish. I actually named the white one after Melissa, the woman who gave me Wednesday. And of course, Wednesday is the black one. Wednesday is a peacock fantail Oranda, I believe. She's got like 4 distinctions. So she's not a standard Oranda. She's like a fancy peacock fantail Oranda or something. And she's got those weird little things. I think of them as her eyelashes, even though they're not on her eyes. They're by her nostrils. But it looks like she's got these big flowing eyelashes. Again, super, super fancy. And I can only imagine what she cost. Never have looked it up, though. Maybe one day I will. I feel like it'd be rude. She was a gift. I feel like looking up how much somebody spent on a gift for me is just in bad taste. If somebody else were to look all that up and tell me how much it cost, that would be a different story, though. 33 months, Taco Friday. All right, get caught back up. Extreme krill flakes. Never heard of those. I don't really breed anything necessarily. If they do, they do, but I don't particularly try to. My angelfish lay eggs occasionally, but they're usually alone, so nothing ever comes of it. I do have discus in here that have paired off and spawn all the time, but the eggs never survive. They always get eaten or die or something. So I never particularly worry about that either. Again, if they do, that'd be awesome. I'd love to have a little baby little baby discus. It just never happens. What else do I get? I mean, my live breeders breed like mad. My tetras in my 55, my Buenos Aires tetras and my diamond tetras breed fairly frequently, and I see babies in there that do survive and grow up to be adulthood. I haven't put any fish in that 55 in years, and I now have more diamond tetras and Buenos Aires tetras in it than when I started. I put like 5 or 6 in there. Now I've got like 11 of each, and I didn't add any. And so they're actually expanding their numbers over the years. I have lost several that have just died off from old age, but they're breeding in there. I haven't had to replace the fish in that tank for years because they just maintain their own population. Having said that, though, I don't breed them. They do all that by themselves. I don't get involved, and I don't worry about it. So yes, but no, or no, but yes, sort of. Oh, I bet a puffer would tear a cricket apart. Rosy side dace, nice. Yeah, good old butterbean. I would think shrimp would be pretty high protein for goldfish, too. I don't think I'd feed shrimp to my goldfish. Hey, Neil, how are you? Tree Fitty. It's better than a Dollar Tree. All right, off grid, you have a good evening, and I will see you. I do this every Friday and Sunday, most Fridays and Sundays. Every now and again, I miss a night, depending on how I'm feeling. Usually it's because of depression, and since I've been taking magic mushrooms fairly regularly, my depression has just lifted. Again, I feel like a new man. I just feel like my whole fucking world has changed since I've started eating these mushrooms. It's incredible. I don't want to keep harping on it because I don't want to make this into the mushroom live stream. But again, my regular viewers know that whenever I discover something new or I get onto some new kick that I'm into or whatever, I talk about that a lot until I kind of get it out of my system. But this has been life-changing. I don't mean that hyperbolically. This has been life-changing for me. I'm really, really glad I got to try some mushrooms again after all these years. It has just done profound things inside my head. It's just, I feel like I've done a spring cleaning in my brain. It's been amazing. Dan's fish and shrooms. Well, I told you I was already thinking earlier this evening. I have to start changing it to psychedelic Dan. Dan, the psychedelic man. Wow, it's already 10:30. The night is rolling by fast, isn't it? I was wondering if I was going to make it till 10 o'clock earlier, and now it's already 10:30. All right, I'm going to puff on my little mushroom thing again and see what happens. Again, I can feel it. It's strange. I don't think I'm going to buy another one of these vape pens. Probably buy another one of those chocolate bars at some point. And I don't like the flavor or the sensation of drinking it. But this mushroom juice, as I call it, it's actually a high potency mushroom syrup. It's just like a sweet syrup you mix with seltzer water, or you mix with soda or something like that. It is strawberry gelato flavor, but it is like drinking fucking Robitussin. It's really nasty. I took a swig of it earlier, so I got a little mild buzz going. That was a big swig. I don't know why I just did that, but I took a really big swig right there. So I'm probably going to have an interesting long night tonight. I doubt I'm going to be getting to sleep anytime. I don't know why the fuck I just did that. It's so late to be doing that. That was a big swig. That was like twice as much as I drank earlier. So that's probably going to be enough to put me up to what I would call a trip. This is just kind of, I can tell, how do you guys define a low grade mushroom experience? Do you call it like, is that a trip, or am I getting high? Is it a buzz? Like, what is the, like, I've always thought of a trip as like tripping. Like, you're tripping when you're tripping. Again, standing in corners, sitting in the closet for an hour, hearing colors and tasting sounds and all that. Like, that's tripping. This isn't even in that same fucking, I'm not even in the parking lot of the same ballpark. I'm not even in the same block as that ballpark with what I got going on right now. So what would you call that? I'm definitely feeling the effects of it, but I am not in any way approaching the neighborhood of smelling fucking colors and shit like that, like that, like a real trip would be. Jamming on the city bus. Well, I'm trying to move away from the fish specific theme, which is why I changed it to Dan's Den rather than Dan's, everyday fish keeping or whatever. So I don't want to move away from fish keeping. That is still kind of foundational. We do talk about that a lot. We're obviously doing the live streams in my fish room, that sort of thing. I just don't want to feel like I'm restricted to talking about fish. I get people that get angry because I'm talking about my mushrooms or I'm talking about some other, kayaking or whatever. They see, my banner is a big fish tank. It's called Everyday Fish Keeping. I'm doing a live stream and they tune in to listen to me talking about doing drugs. Like, what the fuck? I thought I was tuning in to listen to you talk about fish. So I'm trying to avoid that. I'm trying to have some sort of thing that doesn't necessarily say, hey, this is the Dan Drug Channel. But I want the title to also say, like, hey, this is Dan's channel, and if you tune in to hang out with Dan, like, maybe he is going to talk about drugs tonight. You never know. And I don't know how to convey that in a very good name for the channel. So Dan's Den is where it's sitting at right now. But I've just found out this evening that it's already taken. A shroom shooter. I like the swig I just did. Oh, Dan's fish shroom. I see what you did there, Robert. Old man eyes. I did not see that. I just glanced at it. I saw Dan's fish room. Dan's fish shroom. It's clever. I like that. I don't think anybody would ever notice it, but I like that. That's good. Yeah, I used to go by danielhiteshew. It was just my name as the channel name, and I thought about going back to that. Would make the most sense, but at the same time, I still wanted to have some kind of feeling like you're. I don't know. Maybe I will just change it back to my name, and then people come into it with no expectations whatsoever. This is just this dude's channel. I do have probably 6,000 fish keeping videos. And again, that's not hyperbolic. I probably have close to 6,000 fish keeping videos in my library at this point. So technically, I still probably would be considered a fish keeping channel. But as far as my live streams here, I just don't want to feel obligated to have to just sit here and talk about fish all the time. It's just, I can't keep doing it. I've done it for too long. I'm almost bored with it. I'm not bored with the fish keeping. I'm not bored with the doing the stuff. I'm just bored with the talk, just making up fish keeping small talk when I got nothing to talk about, rather than talking about what I actually want to talk about. Which most of my live streams, I'm like, the stuff I really want to talk about, I just don't, because it's not appropriate for the live stream. I try to keep it as fish keeping as possible. I venture into the kayaking a little bit. That's fairly safe, although I do lose a lot of people once I start talking about kayaking. It's not offensive, but it also doesn't interest a lot of people. Again, they didn't tune in to hear me talking about kayaking. The drugs, the OnlyFans, the stuff that's more adult kind of oriented. There's a lot of adults out there that don't necessarily want to tune into adult oriented stuff if they weren't expecting to. So I got to be kind of mindful of that. I don't want to have somebody be, shocked and horrified when they tune in to listen to what I'm saying. Although I'm sure at times somebody is tuned in just at the right time to be shocked and horrified by what I was saying. But, well, what can I do about it? I can't believe I'm going to go through this whole entire iced tea tonight. All right, let me put this mushroom juice away before I drink any more of this shit tonight. That's going to be a fucking... I'll let you guys know on Sunday how the rest of the night turned out. But in another half an hour or so, that's going to be rolling on to me, and that's going to be a doozy. That was a big swig. I think I was thinking along the terms of last night when I did it, I took 3 swigs. I did a swig that was pretty small. An hour and a half later, I did a little bit larger swig, and then about an hour and a half later, I did another fairly small one. And I think when I just did that swig, I was thinking about the 2 additional swigs I had taken yesterday and kind of doing them both in one. So I probably just swallowed a full teaspoon on that second swallow there. The first swig I did this evening was 3/4 of a teaspoon maybe. And then I just did another full teaspoon. So that's going to be significant when that kicks in. That wasn't a small amount. Oh, this bowl's done too. Let me repack this. If you missed it earlier, I was talking about how I have noticed that in addition to a lot of the other behavioral sort of mental changes I've experienced over the last couple of weeks, A lot of it has to do with, I feel like my ADHD has been like just like beaten into submission at this point. And one of the aspects about the ADHD is, you know, how I've talked about before, how like I'm really passionate about stuff. I feel like really strongly about things. If it's music or if it's something I like, I really fucking talk about it like it's the greatest thing ever. And stuff that annoys me, I talk about it like it's the worst thing ever. Like those extreme emotions aren't really there anymore. I've been listening to music that I really, you know, like makes me tear up and gives me goose pimples and stuff like that. Normally, now I'm listening to it and I'm thinking, yeah, this is really good music. I understand why I appreciate it, why I like it and everything. But like the fucking goose pimples were gone, you know, I want like that intense emotion of appreciating the music is gone. So that's kind of a bummer. I liked being intense like that. You really enjoy something when you're enjoying it to that fucking level of intensity. The other side of the coin is that, you know, my aggressive driving and all the things that annoy me, that really annoy me. Yesterday, I'll give you a great example of how this is one of the mental changes I've noticed. I go through, I can work myself into like a rage state over something that hasn't even happened yet. I'll start fantasizing about the way something's going to happen. And in this particular example, I had ordered my mushroom juice and I'd ordered that little mushroom vape. It said on the tracking that it was out for delivery, meaning it's on the truck. You're getting it today. When I left to run up to the Walmart in the afternoon, I checked the mail and the mail was here. And I thought, great, you know, it's here because it's coming in the mail. And it wasn't. And I thought, oh, well, I guess maybe they're going to update it when I get home. I'll check later and it'll show that, you know, it's now expected tomorrow or something like that. But it wasn't. When I got to Walmart, I checked my tracking and the tracking said it had been delivered. And I was like, it wasn't delivered. It wasn't in my mailbox. It wasn't dropped off at the house. And like, I started working myself up into this scenario where I had to contact the company and tell them, like, look, I never got my product. And they're going to say, well, according to us, the USPS said they delivered it. And so we're not going to send you a refund or anything. And I was just going to be out $100 because that's what I paid for total for all the products and everything. And I was like already composing the fucking angry email I was going to send. And I was really working myself. And I had to just like, dude, just fucking chill out. Like, go home, figure out what's going on. See if it's there, make a phone call, whatever. Just calm the fuck down. You don't know what the fuck's happening yet. And I did. I just calmed down. I just stopped thinking about it and said, whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't do anything until I get home anyway. Like, who in the hell is inhabiting my brain? Like, that is not me. Like, I don't think like that. I don't think clearly like that. I don't think rationally like that. I think a little, and then I'm up here with anger. Like, there's no in between. I don't rationalize things and just say, calm down, look into it, and then you can act accordingly once you find out what's going on. And so I did. I calmed down. I drove home. I opened the mailbox, and there was the package sitting in the mailbox. It was like a special delivery came, and I got a second delivery for the day, and it showed up on time. Like it said, it was out for delivery and everything else, and everything was fine. And so under normal circumstances, I would have worked myself into a fucking rage state by the time I got home, only to go like, oh, good thing it was in there, god damn it. And then I'd like the rest of my day would have been ruined because of the fucking adrenaline and all the, you know, all of the you know, stress hormones and everything that I would have worked up. The I can't even think of what the fucking stress hormone is now that's so bad for us. Cortisol, you know, my cortisol levels would have been through the roof all the rest of the day and for nothing. You know, it would have all been in my imagination. And I regularly did that kind of stuff. I always did that kind of stuff. I'd lie in bed at night working myself into a fucking rage state over stuff that hadn't even happened yet, like ruminating on all the things that I'm going to say to that person or whatever when I make that phone call tomorrow, only to wake up in the morning and find out that everything's taken care of and it was a mistake or something, you know? I swear to God, I'm not the same person I was 2 weeks ago, but in a good way. Like all the rough edges have been smoothed out. I just feel like I'm more functional. My brain is calmer. Again, I just feel like I've done a spring cleaning. I've swept out all the dark storm clouds. All the dusty corners have been cleaned out. The sun's shining in. I don't feel depressed anymore. I don't get into that cycle of like ruminating on things where you just go over the same thought like over and over and over and over. You just can't get out of that rut of thinking about something. That's an ADHD thing, and I haven't been doing that. I really feel like these mushrooms have just like smashed away my ADHD stuff. It's just not really that much of an issue anymore, that problematic anymore. It's amazing. I don't want to start sounding like the fucking mushroom guy that's like thinks it'll cure every ailment you have, but Jesus, every mental ailment I've had, it seems to have done a pretty damn good job on. And I'm not going through any kind of therapy or, microdosing with guidance and all that kind of stuff. I'm just a dude that's been eating some mushrooms and it's been having this kind of effect on me. Now, I'm also a dude that knows enough about like thinking about my own feelings and my own thoughts, and I've been in enough self-help and therapy stuff over the years and whatnot that I can think my way through that maybe better than the average person could. And I haven't been doing like hard tripping kind of bullshit. I haven't been like partying with it. I've just been doing these low doses, but it's just been amazing. It really has been incredible what it's done in my brain. Just stumbling a little bit. That's a good idea. I can call it I'm not tripping. I'm stumbling. I'm going to use that. I'm stealing that from you, Cornish. Iceman, I was just thinking about you today. Shrooms cure your butt warts. I told you they'll cure anything. Glasshouse Aquatics. I kind of got tired of posting videos every day, and eventually I got so tired of it that I decided I was going to do it less often and then sort of take a break from it, and I just walked away from it. I haven't actually posted a standalone video in a long time, and the last few I posted were few and far between. I've thought about coming down here and maybe doing an around the world update, and maybe I'll try to get back into doing that once a week or so, doing around the world update, just to kind of keep everybody updated and keep the channel active and whatnot. It's not so much that I have like bad feelings about the fish keeping community and the YouTube experience and everything. It's just been my personal experience with the way YouTube changed their policies and the way the rug got pulled out from under me, so to speak. And I just kind of lost interest in the whole thing and just got sort of angry at YouTube in general and just fuck all this, And I've kind of emotionally just sort of walked away from being the YouTube fish keeper channel guy. I don't mind sharing my experiences and talking with people and answering questions and stuff like that. I know I still am a fish keeper guy and I've got knowledge and stuff to share. I don't know. I just kind of burned out on the whole YouTube thing. I guess it's as simple as that. I just kind of burned out on the whole YouTube thing, and I'm not doing a whole lot of stuff anymore. My money started going away. It didn't seem to matter whether I posted videos or didn't post videos. It didn't change whether I got income or not. And I just threw my hands up and walked away. I'm just done. I like doing the live streams because this is like hanging out. This is socializing for me. This isn't doing a fish keeping thing. This is me hanging out with people in an arm's reach kind of way, a second or third person sort of connection, parasocial hanging out. We'll call it that. I'm parasocially hanging out with people. The idea of like putting a shirt on and getting mic'd up and coming down here and setting my camera up and making sure the tank behind me is clean and there's no glare and I'm framed properly and I got my thoughts together and like shooting a video. It's been so long since I've done a video like that. Like that would feel strange to me. Maybe I could approach it as though it's an OnlyFans video and just do it, not an OnlyFans video. And I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if I get back into doing it or not. There's not really much to update on my office tank. If I did, it would be this is kind of where we're at, and we need to move forward from here. It's kind of at a There's like not much in it. Got the cyanobacteria. The green cyanobacteria is growing all over everything. It kind of looks like crap. I dumped a bunch of shrimp in there, hoping the shrimp will eat the cyanobacteria. We'll see if they do or not. I'm hoping they will. But all that's left in that tank right now is the 5 skirt tetras that I put in there once upon a time. And I have a clown pleco that once I turn the lights out at night and I'm still in the office, but the fish tank light is out, I can see the clown pleco comes out and gets on the glass and starts, munching around on the glass and stuff. So when you just look at the tank, it just looks like a tank full of mess. It's just green and lots of moss, Java moss growing in it, a lot of cyanobacteria growing through the Java moss. So I can do an update, but that's kind of what it's going to be an update on like, we need to do something with this. Maybe the day I actually do something with it and get in there and really do some tank maintenance on it, maybe we'll do an update then, and I can do a before and after. This is what we're starting with, and then I can show you, where we get to after getting it cleaned up. Maybe I'll buy a new fish to put in there or something like that, and we'll do an update on it. So we'll see. Yeah, I know glass houses. A lot of or glass house. A lot of people say that they wish I would do more generalized kind of stuff. The only thing I can think of is, well, I don't even need to show you the package. I just ordered a package of air stones recently, and I thought about shooting a video about that because that is a topic that would come up occasionally. Whenever I've shot videos talking about air pumps or air stones, I would have people asking me what my method for cleaning the air stones is. Do you soak it in vinegar? Do you, whatever? How do you clean your air stones? And my answer to that is I buy air stones in a 10-pack for $3.99. I just got a 10-pack of air stones for $3.99. I don't clean them. I get them for 39 cents a piece. It probably costs me more in vinegar to clean it than it would be to simply replace it with another 39-cent air stone. And so I thought about shooting that video, but that would have been the video right there. I don't clean them. I replace them because it costs 39 cents a piece. What more is there to really say? I could work that into a 3-minute video. But that's about all there is to say about it. I could also do it in a 30-second video. I don't waste my time cleaning them because they're so dirt cheap. I just buy them by the 10-pack. So I thought about doing that video. But other than that, I used to come down here every day. All right, what am I going to shoot a video about tonight? I'd look around. I'd think about something with the plan. I literally would just try to come up with something to shoot a video about. Sometimes that video would be like, oh, hey, look at this fish. I'm just in here tonight enjoying these fish, and I'll just talk for a few minutes while I would point the camera. But I felt obligated to put a damn video out about fish every day, and that shit just started getting on my nerves. I started to just resent the idea of having to put these videos out all the time. So an Around the World update, that is an update video. I'm showing you what's going on in the tanks this week. It's not me sitting down talking about the nitrogen cycle again, or talking about how air stones work, or talking about the importance of whatever. Again, there's just so many times I can do that, and I have thousands of videos in my library. I literally have over 5,000 videos in my library. That's a lot of videos to sit down and just talk about the same shit over and over again. And again, it's, I grew to resent the whole process. So we'll see what happens. Well, thank you, Robert. And that's what I'm actually going for now. Well, see, there you go, Cornish. I'm trying to get it to that point of you don't even have to be a fish keeper. Like Laura is one of my, regular viewers and channel members for a long time, and she doesn't even keep fish. She does terrariums and stuff, but she just likes the community, and she likes hanging out and talking, and there's interesting conversations, and I talk enough about plants and the way plants use food and sunlight and all that kind of stuff. And she gets information that's useful and everything in her hobby, even though it's not fish keeping. It is fish keeping related. I do garden stuff out in the yard, and I talk about, gardening and all that kind of stuff. And so I really am trying to get an audience that's based less on a topic, fish keeping, that just isolates the interest. I'm going more for a group of like-minded people that want to hang out for the like-minded conversation and community, and that way it gives an opportunity to have more conversation, but at the same time a less diverse crowd, if that makes sense. I like diversity and everything, but diversity has its limits. And when I do just an open live stream, I can have neo-Nazis in the room at the same time I've got Southern Baptists, or I was going to say Amish, but I don't think any Amish people will be watching. It's such a wide variety. If fish keeping is the topic, I'm sure there's neo-Nazis out there that like fish keeping. Neo-Nazis aren't welcome in my fucking leave if you're a neo-Nazi, if you have neo-Nazi sympathies or whatever. If you're a racist or a fascist or whatever, just get the fuck out of here. You're not welcome. I don't want you in my house. I don't want you in my fish room. I don't want you in my community. I don't want you in my conversation. And having just fish keeping be the topic, you can get that. If I'm the sort of reason people are here because people want to hang out with me and hear what I have to talk about or whatever, somebody like a neo-Nazi is not going to hang around very long, because they're going to pretty quickly learn that they're not welcome here. Or if they make a comment, they're going to get shunned really quickly and blocked and knocked out of the channel, and that sort of thing. And, same thing with homophobia. You make homophobic comments, or you trans bash people, or you dead name people and start using people's dead names and stuff like that, you're out of here. I don't have to just let anybody I want into my fucking house or into my fish room. And so that's kind of what I'm going for now. I'm just trying to narrow it down. I'm not going for quantity anymore. That's where you make the money. That's clearly not ever going to work for me. If I was trying to still make the money, I would just talk about fish and not give a fuck who's in the room. As long as I got eyeballs on the screen, I'm making money. And I'm just not going to do that. I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm more worried about having a community of people that can hang out and enjoy conversation and talk about stuff. If it's 20 of us, then that's fine. It's 20 of us. It doesn't have to be 100 or whatever. If it's 10 of us, that's fine. I'm not worried about doing it for the money anymore. I'm just tired of having like a commercial channel. I just want to have a place to hang out kind of thing. And that's kind of where I'm shaping it now, which is where we're going through channel changes and name changes and all that kind of stuff. Rebranding myself, I guess. I think that second swig I took is starting to roll on. It's been about half an hour now, and I'm definitely starting to feel like I'm tripping a little more. Exactly. Watching me take shrooms and whatnot is all anybody else needs. That's enough reason not to do it. Yeah, the Amish that are watching this are called Mennonites. All right, I just got a tag from Kane, so that is working. There we go. So your stuff's popping up. So Kane is a new member, everybody, and is actively posting stuff over there on Discord. So check that out. Welcome him to the community. And I'm not going to watch those now for obvious reasons. And we will get back to my YouTube comments here. All right, it is 11 o'clock, so I really probably should start winding down, but at the same time, I feel like you all watched me take that big-ass swig of mushroom juice, and rather than stop right when it's about to start kicking in, I feel like that would be kind of a dick maneuver on my part. So we'll give it another little bit. We'll see what happens over the next 15 or 20 minutes while we chit-chat. But I am going to start winding down and wrapping it up because we are 3 hours in now. And I am also going to run to the little boys' room real quick here. Blue Dream, no oil, just straight up Blue Dream. I do tend to smoke more weed when I'm shrooming now. I thought I'd smoke less, but I actually smoke more, it seems. All right, we'll hit on this when we come back too and see what that does to my head. All right, give me a minute. Let me put you on mute. You guys can all chat amongst yourselves for a moment. All right, I are back. W. I see the W. I'm just not sure what a W means all by itself like that. All right, I am all caught up on comments. He checked out early, Robert. He was tired and needed to sleep. Remember, when Zini's hanging out with us, he's over in England, where he's 5 hours ahead of us. So he is now at 4 a.m. where he is, and it's no wonder he is long since asleep. I always feel bad. I'll go upstairs after the live streams a lot of times, and I'll chat with him on Discord till 1 in the morning, and he reminds me that it's 6 in the morning where he is, and like he needs to get some sleep. And I'm like, oh shit, yeah, sorry, dude, didn't mean to keep you up all night again. So as much as I miss when he's not here, it is, it is good to see that he's actually getting some sleep and not being fucking manic and up all night or whatever reason he stays up all night. I don't know why he stays up all night like that, but I'm glad he's getting some sleep. Ute slang. No wonder I didn't get it, because I am not a Ute. And I do not keep up with the current slang. I don't even keep up with the outdated slang. I think what would be the most recent slang that I know of? Yeet. Was that from 10 years ago? And I don't even know what it means. I just know that that's a slang term for something. Nine hours ahead. Wow. Yeah, I always feel bad for my European friends. I got a regular viewer, Peter, that tunes in from Belgium. He is 6 or 7 hours ahead. So it's, again, when I go live, when I'm starting, it's already like 1 or 2 in the morning for him. And so he definitely has late nights when he hangs out with us. These rainbow fish are huge. Oh, okay. I got you there, Kane. Like one in the W column. A big win. Gotcha. I won't use it, though, because whenever people my age start using slang, it immediately becomes instantly uncool. And then the slang has to change to something else so that people like me and my age don't use it. I can live with that. I know I'm still cool and young and hip, but I still use the term hip. So that lets you know how I'm not really. Oh, you know what else we forgot to bring in here tonight? We forgot to bring in here my cool mushroom lamp. We didn't turn on my rainbow lamp either tonight. But this is my new mushroom lamp. And it's weird. You can see the lines on the... Oh, it stayed on the cycle that I left, so I don't have to cycle all the way through again. It's already there. Nice. So normally I would keep this where it's a little bit darker, and I put it over here on top of the gourami tank. And that way we get to enjoy the nice glowy, mushroomy color changes up there. What will they think of next? But last night, as I said earlier, I was over in my lab, and I was tripping pretty hard last night, having a good time, enjoying my YouTube videos and whatnot. That's really all I did, was just sat in my basement with I turned all the lights out. I had my glowing mushroom on, and I lit an oil lamp. So I had like some fire light, and I just watched YouTube videos and just sat in the basement like by myself in the dark for like 3 or 4 hours last night, until I finally came out of it. And I was like, oh, I should go upstairs now. And then I went upstairs and just kind of tripped out for a little while and then went to bed. I was still in bed by 1 a.m., I think, or midnight or something. So I hung out in the basement from like 6 p.m. till almost midnight or something. And again, I was in bed by midnight. So I probably went upstairs about 10:30 or 11, and then was upstairs for maybe an hour before I went to bed. So it was a good day. I didn't do shit, but I had a hell of a good time. I had a lot of fun. Nether Ninja, how are you? Yeah, we're actually thinking about changing it back again to just my name. So if you see Dan Hiteschew up there soon enough, you'll don't be surprised. Trippy and Hitter Smurf. I've had this argument before. Smurfs are 3 apples high. That's how tall they are. How big is an apple? That tall, maybe? Something like that? I mean, unless we're talking about little crab apples. But when I think of an apple, I think of an apple as being about that tall. That means Smurfs are this fucking tall? What size mushrooms do those things live in? Because I've seen the damn Smurfs cartoon, and they go inside those mushrooms. They have second stories. They have windows they look out, kitchens. If the Smurf is that tall, or even that tall, 3 apples stacked on top of each other, how fucking big are those mushrooms they live in? That's all I want to know. And you are correct. These rainbow fish are thick as shit. The male in here, thickness, side to side, his belly is about like that. I've caught fish on hook and line out of the reservoir considerably smaller than these rainbow fish. Now, I probably wouldn't catch rainbow fish because they have notoriously small mouths. But size-wise, I catch sunfish much, much smaller than these rainbow fish. These are some chunky little bastards in there. But they are also in a 125-gallon tank, so they've had room to grow, and they've been well fed, and they are at least 7 years old, maybe pushing 8 at this point. I'm just guessing. It could be 6, but I think it's at least 7 years old. So they've had time to grow. They're definitely chunky fish. Exactly. How do they hide in the woods? There's a whole clearing that has mushrooms that are 20 inches tall, 18 inches tall. Those are some big goddamn mushrooms. How does people not spot them? I'm not sure if you're making a trip reference as to me eating the mushrooms and tripping, or are you saying like go to safe countries when you take vacation? Because I always recommend going to safe countries when you go on vacation. You should look at the travel advisories before you go. A lot of them are very specific to certain groups of people too. All right, well, I'm definitely at least going to stand up and get back into first position because I'm starting to get that little bit of antsy feeling, and that's definitely a trip thing. So My second swig is working its way into my brain now. So I will say I can vouch now for personally. I've tried several of this Treehouse company's products. And while I'm not personally probably going to buy their vape thing again, it's legit. It's definitely a microdose vape thing. And now that I got some shrooms in my brain already, let's see what this actually does to me. I still can't see through the little window to see how much I have left. Looking straight in that light's not a good idea. If you do this enough, it starts to have an impact. All right, I think we're going to call it good on this. I'll be back. Let me go wander around in here for a minute. Have a little look around. Oh, coffee. I'm going to have a swig of my coffee. That was good coffee. All right. Yeah. Still not really getting the visuals that I want to see. That's all I've been wanting at ever since like 2 weeks ago when I started down this new mushroom journey of my life. All I've wanted to see is like good trippy visuals. I want to see shit moving. I want to see colors changing. And I have yet to get it. The one night that I had some decent visuals was it was just trails. And it was because I turned on some LEDs that were like 6500K, that really bluish sort of light. And when I was moving my hands around underneath of that, I was seeing some trails that were, more significant than I normally see. I always see trails to some degree, but when I'm tripping, I tend to see them more than when I'm not. And I just haven't been seeing them. Like right now, I'm not really seeing anything would be significantly, what I think of as like real trails. Under that weird blue light, though, I was seeing some more significant trails the other night. But right now, even now, I'm not really seeing much in the way of trails or anything. Well, Kane, it said on the packaging with the vape that if you did like 1 to 3 puffs would be a microdose day at the office, like up to 6 puffs would be a day at the beach kind of thing. And then they say 8 to 10 puffs is like, ooh, you're fucking on the moon or something like that. Again, they use the fanciful language. But the idea is 8 to 10 puffs and you're tripping. I just did more than 8 to 10 puffs after drinking mushroom juice, and I still don't feel like I'm on the moon. Like when I describe on the moon, that's when like you can taste the color yellow and you can hear the number 9. When I bite into something and it tastes blue, that's when you're fucking tripping. That's on the moon. I know there's stages between. There's the day at the office and the day at the beach and all that. But if you're saying I'm on the moon, I better be hearing fucking colors and tasting sounds and stuff like that. That's on the moon, and so far I've not gotten anywhere close to that, even with eating the chocolate bar and drinking the syrup and puffing on the pen. So I need to just get my hands on some mushrooms again and just do like 1/8 of mushrooms. And then I will be tasting colors and hearing numbers and all that kind of stuff. Yodeling. First of all, I'd have to learn how to yodel. It's all down in the throat. I don't know how to make my glottis go up and down like that. Well, LSD definitely gives you some serious visuals, no doubt about that. But I don't think I want to be doing any more LSD anytime in the near future. You haven't tasted yellow 40 years. Yep. All right, Cornish. Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day, and I said the same thing. I used to trip with him years ago, and I said something to him about, like, what I'm doing is nice, it's fun, it's interesting. I'm having a conversation with him on the phone, so obviously I wasn't tripping, or I wouldn't be having a conversation with him on the phone that made any sense whatsoever. And I was talking to him about this or whatever, and I said something about tripping. He's like, "Yeah, until you know what the number 9 tastes like you've never." Or he said something to that effect. I was like, "Exactly, you know what I'm talking about." When you can hear yellow, and that kind of stuff, like, that's when you're tripping. Like, that's when you're really fucking tripping. You're seeing everything's fucking moving and swimming around and squiggly, and everything's undulating in and out, and that's where I want to get. One of these days, I'm definitely not going to be doing that on camera, that's for sure. This is nice. I don't mind being on camera, like, to this degree of tripping. I might be a little silly and goofy, but whatever, I can have fun. I wouldn't want to be tripping balls like that kind of tripping on camera. Let's see. Bob sent me something. I want to check it out. Interesting. Bob just showed that apparently AI will not give you instructions on how to do a controlled dangerous substance or whatever. If I read that correctly, I was straining with my old man eyes to see that tiny little print. But I got the impression AI was basically saying, you asked me something I'm not allowed to tell you. Maybe that's a change. Maybe, because I've always been under the impression that was one of the problems with AI, is like, you could ask AI how to build a bomb and it would tell you. In fact, that moron that blew up the Cybertruck in front of the casino to make his big political statement and everything, the reason that was so stupid and it was like fireworks going off in the back of his truck was because he asked AI how to build a bomb, and the fucking AI response was fireworks and gasoline and shit. And so he followed the instructions he got, which were stupid. And that's why that whole big thing turned into that fiasco. Instead of being an actual bomb, it was this weird fire that started with some fireworks, and nobody really understood what it was supposed to be until, they did an investigation and found out. So yeah, AI used to tell you how to do all kinds of shit like that. So I guess that's kind of interesting if they're not doing that anymore. You never wipe. Nice. I'm definitely going to use the term stumble, though. I'm definitely not tripping right now, but I am stumbling along. That's a good way of saying it. I like that. All right, everybody. It is almost 11:30. This is probably about as good as it's going to get, or as high as I'm going to be. And I would like to go upstairs and get some food in my belly. Start winding down for the night at some point. I probably am going to be up half the damn night, but I don't want to be up half the damn night in front of a camera. Or at least not this one. So I will call that good there, unless there's any, last thoughts, comments, questions you got before I go. I'll give you a minute or two to last call. I'm not just going to bail on you like that. But I do want to wrap it up. So last call, everybody. Last thoughts. Excuse me. And then, of course, we will be back Sunday. If you do want access to the Discord we've been discussing this evening, or you want access to a third private membership-only live stream that I do every Wednesday night, you can join a membership here at the channel. Don't get confused. I do have a Patreon, but that's not what you want to sign up for. You want to go to my YouTube videos. Underneath of the video, you'll see a little join button. And if you join the YouTube channel for $2.99 a month, you will get access to the Discord server, and you will also get access to the members-only live stream that we do every Wednesday. So if you're enjoying this live stream and you'd like a third one of these every week, because I do one Sunday night as well for public consumption, but on Wednesdays, it's members only. And if you want access to that, you will have to join up. Remember, not Patreon. Just go to the channel and join the actual YouTube channel. No, I never did get that sculpin, and I'm not even 100% sure if my sculpin was a sculpin. It might have been a kind of darter, and I wasn't sure what I was identifying. So we do have sculpin that live in this area. I don't know if that's what I had, though. But whatever that fish was that I used to catch on a regular basis and that I referred to as the sculpin, I thought it was a mottled sculpin, mottled with a T, 2 T's, not D. And I never had them survive longer than a couple of weeks. I tried live the bloodworms, the frozen bloodworms. I tried all the other types of food, like grinding it up and making sure it went on the bottom. I tried feeding the tank at night after I turned the lights out, and so stuff would get on the bottom. I tried the mysis shrimp and all that kind of stuff. I never found anything that fish would eat. I honestly don't even know. I don't know if I ever really did any research. I probably did. I just don't remember it, although I usually do remember when I do stuff like that. They might be like the blennies and stuff that actually eat off of the microorganisms that live on the rocks and the biofilm, and like they're just not going to take regular fish food, and that could be why I didn't have them in a big enough environment or whatever. Freshwater sculpins primarily feed on benthic invertebrates. Okay, exactly like I said. Especially aquatic insect larvae and nymphs, but their diet also includes small crustaceans, fish eggs, and occasionally small fish. They're ambush predators with large mouths capable of consuming prey nearly as large as themselves. So I don't know if my sculpins were actually a freshwater sculpin or not. Oh, wow. Yeah, see, that's exactly what I had was really similar to this. That's from Oregon. So I don't know if that would be the exact one I had, but that's definitely not what I had. That's fucking awesome looking. That's a freshwater sculpin, or maybe that's not a freshwater. I know there are saltwater sculpins too. I might have had a darter. The more I'm thinking about this, I don't know. My fish did look an awful lot like that. That's probably saltwater because that's huge. Yeah, see, that's really, really what and that's a mottled sculpin. Well, maybe it was. I don't know. Maybe I did have sculpin. But whatever it was, I could never get it to eat. Man, that's fucking huge. Again, these are coastal fisheries, so these are saltwater sculpins. I think there's actually more species of saltwater than there are freshwater. See, that's it again right there. That's that mottled sculpin. So, I don't know. Whatever it was, whether I had a sculpin or I had a darter, I never could get it to survive. I think that's one of those fish that would need a really natural, if you are going to keep it in a artificial environment, it would have to have a very naturalized environment. It would have to have a lot of bioculture, a lot of microcrustaceans and stuff growing in the, it would have to be able to feed off of its environment. I don't think you're going to be able to put prepared foods of any sort in the tank that it's going to regularly feed off of. So if you've got a large tank and it's a very mature, well-seasoned tank and it's not too overly cleaned, then you might have luck with those, but I did not, as I've said many times now. Ghost shrimp, if you're breeding ghost shrimp in the tank, that's certainly not a bad approach. That could be a helpful idea. All right. We will call that the last little hoo-ha of the night. I'm not sure what a hoo-ha is, but that sounds dirty. So thank you for hanging out with me tonight. I had a good time. I hope you did too. Join if you want all those perks I spoke about a few minutes ago. Don't if you don't. And I will be back Sunday night again publicly for at least a couple hours. 8 to 10 is what I shoot for. Often go over, but 8 to 10 is what I usually schedule. So I will see you then. Otherwise, have a good weekend. Thanks, everybody. Good night.